Hello and welcome. Tonight's stories come from abandoned places and lost locations, where silence hides something unseen. If you enjoy the stories, please like the video, subscribe, and comment. Where you're watching from, get comfortable and relax. Story 1. We explored an empty church where candles light themselves. Leo was obsessed with the St. Ignatius Church, not the grand cathedral downtown, but the old one, the one swallowed by the overgrown woods on the edge of what used to be the Miller farm. He'd found a grainy photo online, a soaring Gothic structure of gray stone, pointed arches, stained glass windows dark and empty, with a caption, St. Ignatius of the Pines, consecrated 1898, deconsecrated 973, abandoned, do not enter. Leo, ever the thrill-seeker nursing a broken heart and a dwindling bank account, saw it as the perfect subject for his Lost Sanctuaries YouTube series. "Dude, it's got the whole vibe," he'd said, waving his phone under my nose in our cramped apartment. The stale air thick, the smell of instant noodles. Gothic decay, isolation, rumored hauntings, and it's literally fallen apart. We get golden hour footage, some atmospheric drone shots, maybe catch those ghost lights people talk about. Easy content. He'd grinned, that reckless spark back in his eyes. I should have said no. I remembered the unease that clung to Willow Creek Lodge, the way the walls had whispered my name. But Leo's enthusiasm was infectious, and the rent was due. The church was just a building, I told myself, stone and wood and empty air. No guest ledger, no shadow things, just silence. I agreed. The drive was a slow crawl down a series of increasingly neglected back roads, ending rutted dirt track barely visible through the encroaching pines. The GPS died miles back, replaced by a gnawing sense of isolation that thickened with every mile. The Miller farm was just skeletal foundations and rusted machinery half buried in weeds. Beyond it, the woods closed in, ancient and watchful. And then, through the dense trunks, we saw it. St. Ignatius rose from the forest floor like a broken bone. Its gray stone was stained black with decades of rain and damp, fissured by roots and time. The soaring steeple was intact, a stark finger pointing accusingly at the overcast sky, but the roof over the nave was partially caved in, revealing splintered rafters against the gray. Most stained glass windows were shattered, others boarded haphazardly with plywood gone silver gray. The heavy oak doors hung slightly ajar on rusted hinges, one hanging crookedly. An oppressive silence hung over the place, broken only by the drone of insects and the rustle of dry leaves skittering across the dead grass. The air smelled of wet stone, decaying wood, and a faint, unsettlingly sweet incense that seemed utterly out of place. It wasn't the clean scent of church incense. It was cloying, thick, like flowers left too long on a grave. Leo killed the engine, the sudden quiet pressing in. "Whoa," he breathed, not with awe but with a dawning unease. He fumbled for his camera, the click unnaturally loud. I just stared at the gaping maw of the doorway. The air felt heavy, charged, like the pressure before a storm. We grabbed our packs, water, protein bars, Leo's drone, my cheap flashlight, and approached. Inside, the smell of incense intensified, mixed with the damp chill and the sharp tang of mildew. The grand nave was a cavern of shadows. Moonlight, weak and gray, filtered through the broken roof and boarded windows, illuminating swirling dust motes dancing in the beams. Pews lay overturned, shrouded in ghostly white sheets of dust and cobwebs. The altar at the far end was a ruin, the marble top cracked, the carved reredos behind it splintered and blackened as if by fire. At the foot of the altar, on a small circular stone plinth, stood a dozen or so tall white candles, ordinary-looking but pristine, untouched by the pervasive decay. Their wax was smooth, unblemished, no drips, no soot on the plinth. "That's weird," Leo murmured, lowering his camera slightly. "How are they so clean?" I didn't answer. My attention was fixed on the candles. Something about them felt wrong, not menacing exactly, but expectant, as if they were waiting. The silence was absolute, no wind whistling through the broken panes, no creaking timbers, just a deep, watchful quiet that seemed to press against my eardrums. Then a soft pop. We both jumped. One of the candles, near the edge of the plinth, had just lit itself. A small, steady flame bloomed from the wick, casting a warm, dancing pool of light on a dark stone floor. No smoke, no spark, just light. "Holy shit," Leo whispered, raising his camera again, his earlier unease forgotten in the face of the shot. "Did you see that? It just lit." Before I could warn him, another pop, then another. 2 more candles flared to life, their flames steady, unwavering in the still air. They weren't flickering. They burned with a preternatural calm, their light seeming to push back the shadows not just physically, but spiritually. The sweet incense smell grew stronger, almost overwhelming. "Leo, stop filming," I hissed, my voice tight with a dread that coiled cold in my gut. "We need to go now." He ignored me, mesmerized. "This is it, Ben. This is the footage. Look at them. They're lighting themselves." He took a step closer to the altar, towards the plinth. Maybe it's some kind of delayed ignition. Gas leak? He sounded like he was trying to convince himself. A 4th candle lit, then a 5th. The warm light pooled around the altar, making the shadows beyond the nave seem deeper, more impenetrable. The silence deepened, becoming a physical presence. The dust motes stopped dancing. The air grew colder. The incense smell, now laced with that sharp metallic tang I remembered from the sealed tunnel, the smell of old blood. The flames didn't flicker, they just burned, watching us. "Leo!" I grabbed his arm. He yelped, swinging around. The camera clattered to the dusty floorboards. His face was pale. "Did you feel that?" he breathed. "The air, it just changed." The 6th candle lit, and with it a sound, not a pop, a whisper, faint, sibilant, seeming to come from the walls, the very stones themselves, not words, just a sigh, a collective exhalation of breath held for decades. The subsonic hum I'd felt at Willow Creek, the one that vibrated in the marrow, began, not loud, but deep, resonating through the stone floor and up my legs. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. "Out! Now!" I yelled, my voice cracking. I turned and stumbled back down the center aisle towards the gaping doors. Leo scrambled after me, retrieving his camera. We burst out into the weak afternoon light, gasping. The forest sounds, birds, insects, rushed back, but they sounded muted, distant. The oppressive silence of the church lingered on our skin. We collapsed on the dead grass, leaning against Leo's Jeep, hearts hammering. "Okay," Leo panted, running a hand through his hair. "Okay, that was intense. Definitely not gas, but the footage—" "Ben, the footage is gold. Did you see it? Clear as day." I looked back at the church. The doorway was just darkness, but the warm, steady glow of the 6 lit candles was visible deep within the nave, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe on the walls. "We can't stay," I said, my voice trembling. "We drive out now. Screw the shots." But the forest outside looked different. The trees seemed closer, their branches reaching, and the whispering, it hadn't stopped. It was fainter, carried on the breeze, but it was there, a chorus of dry, papery voices sighing from the pines. "Stay, light the way, join the vigil." We spent the afternoon trying to rationalize it, filming the exterior, the drone buzzing uselessly overhead. It lost signal the moment it approached the steeple. The dread only deepened. The light from the church windows seemed to grow brighter as dusk approached, the 6 candles burning with impossible steadiness, their light visible even through the boarded sections. That cloying incense smell clung to our clothes. As true twilight fell, painting the sky in bruised purples and grays, we knew we couldn't leave. Not in the dark, on those unmarked roads. We'd wait until dawn. We built a small, pathetic fire 100 yards from the church, huddled close for warmth that didn't penetrate the chill in our bones. The church loomed in the darkness, its windows now glowing with that steady, unwavering candlelight. 6 points of warmth in the consuming dark. The whispering was constant now, a soft susurration from the woods, from the very air. Vigil. Watch. Light. Around midnight, Leo nudged me. "Ben, look." He pointed a shaking finger. A 7th candle had lit itself. Its warm glow joined the others, deep within the nave. The whispering rose slightly in pitch, a note of satisfaction? Welcome? Maybe it's safe," Leo whispered, his voice thick with a terrifying mix of fear and fascination. "Maybe the candles, they're protecting it, guarding it. We could go inside just for a minute, see the altar lit, get the shot from inside." "No," I said, the word a ragged breath. "It's not safe. It's calling us." An 8th candle flared to life. The light from the church seemed to pulse just once. The whispering became clearer, forming words. "Come. Warmth. Safe." Leo stood up. "I have to," he said, his eyes fixed on the glowing windows. "I have to see it. The light. It's beautiful, Ben. Don't you feel it? It's peaceful." He started walking towards the church, not running, walking with a calm, almost serene determination. "Leo, stop!" I screamed, scrambling after him. But he didn't hear me or didn't care. He walked up the crumbling stone steps, pushed open the heavy oak door, and stepped into the nave. I followed, my legs leaden with terror. Inside the air was warmer, thick with the cloying incense and that metallic tang. All 12 candles were burning now, their flames perfectly still, casting a warm, golden light that made the dust motes glow like embers. The shadows in the corners were deep, but not threatening. Not anymore. The whispering was a gentle lullaby coming from the walls, the pews, the very air. Vigil. Watch. Stay. Leo stood before the altar, bathed in the candlelight. He wasn't filming. He just stood there, his face upturned, tears tracking clean lines through the grime on his cheeks. A small, peaceful smile touched his lips. "It's so quiet," he murmured. "So calm." I looked at the candles. The wax wasn't melting. The flames didn't consume the wicks. They just were eternal, waiting. And on the stone plinth, in the space between the candles, the dust had been disturbed, not by wind, by a finger. And written in the dust, in a careful, looping script, were 2 names. Leo Vance, Vigil Keeper. Ben Carter, Vigil Keeper. As I watched, the dust beneath my name seemed to shimmer. The whispering softened, became almost maternal. "Rest now," it breathed. "Your place is lit." The warmth of the candle seeped into my bones, not just physical warmth, but a deep, seductive comfort. The fear didn't vanish. It was soothed away, folded into the quiet, the light, the eternal watchfulness of the place. The church wasn't abandoned. It was occupied by the light, by the vigil, and it needed keepers. Leo turned to me, his eyes glowing with the reflected candlelight, serene and vacant. "It's okay, Ben," he said, his voice dreamy. "The light. It never goes out. Come, stand your watch." The last vestige of resistance crumbled. The cold dread was replaced by a profound, terrible peace. My name was written. My place was waiting. The candles had lit themselves for us. I walked forward, not towards the door, but towards the altar, towards the warm, steady light, towards my place beside Leo. The 9th candle flared to life. As I reached the plinth, its flame joining the others in perfect, silent vigil. The whispering became a chorus of contentment. Vigil kept, watchers found, light remains. I didn't look back at the dark doorway. The outside world was gone. There was only the light, the silence, the eternal, watchful peace of St. Ignatius. My hands, of their own accord, reached out and cupped the warm, smooth wax of the candle before me. The flame didn't flicker. It just burned, steady and sure, illuminating the dust motes, the ancient stones, and the 2 new vigil keepers standing their watch in the empty, sacred dark. The church had been waiting, and now we would wait with it, forever. The candles would never go out, and neither would we. That's where this story ends. Let's continue with the next. The sign said, "Do not stay after sunset." We stayed. Leo found the place on a sketchy app called Free Stays. It showed a photo of a crumbling lakeside resort, peeling white paint, broken porch swing, weeds growing through cracked concrete stairs. The description read, "Silver Pines Retreat, vintage charm, free. Leave cash donation in lockbox, no rules." At the bottom, in smaller letters, someone had added, "Ignore the sign at the gate." Leo, desperate after his latest video flopped and his girlfriend left him, waved his phone in my face while we ate cold pizza in our mold-smelling apartment. Dude, free is free. Perfect for my Abandoned America series. Golden hour shots over the lake? Ghost stories? We'll blow up. I should have said no. I knew that reckless glint in his eyes, the same one that led us to Willow Creek Lodge and the concrete tunnel. But my wallet was empty. The rent was due, and the photo looked peaceful. Just an old place forgotten by time. I agreed. Getting there was a nightmare. GPS died miles back. Rain started, turning the dirt road to mud. Our car's headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating skeletal trees. Then we saw the gate, rusty iron bars chained shut. Taped to it, a hand-painted wooden sign, the words chipped but clear in our headlights. "Do not stay after sunset, for your safety." Management. Below it, spray-painted in red. "Leo El YOLO. Jake, 2019. Leo snorted. Typical scare tactic. Probably keeps kids from trashing the place. He rattled the chain. It snapped easily, rust eating through the links. See? No big deal. He shoved the gate open with a screech that echoed in the wet woods. My stomach tightened. The sign didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a warning from someone who knew. Silver Pines wasn't charming. It was a corpse. The main building sagged like a starving animal. Most windows were boarded or shattered. The porch roof had caved in over the entrance. The air smelled of wet, rot, dead leaves, and something faintly sweet, like forgotten fruit in a damp cellar. No bird sang. No frogs croaked from the nearby lake we could hear lapping in the dark. Just the drumming rain and the groan of old wood settling. Leo set up his camera on the porch, filming the storm. Atmospheric! He grinned, but his hands were shaking. I found the lockbox nailed to the rotting post. Inside, a rusty key and a note on yellowed paper. Cash in envelope. Rooms unassigned. Use what you need. Do not stay after sunset. The handwriting was the same as the sign. Sharp, afraid. Inside was worse. The lobby was a tomb. Dust hung thick in the weak light from our flashlights. Velvet curtains hung in shreds. Furniture lay overturned under ghostly white sheets. A massive stone fireplace was full of dead leaves and broken glass. The silence was heavy, thick, pressing against my ears. Only the rain and a low, almost subsonic hum vibrating through the floorboards. It wasn't machinery. It felt alive, like the building was breathing. Leo ignored it, filming cobwebs and peeling wallpaper. "This place is gold, Ben, pure gold." He pointed his light at a reception desk. Behind it sat a thick, leather-bound ledger. Its cover was cracked and stiff. Against all reason, I opened it. The pages were brittle, filled with elegant script listing guest names and room numbers from the 1940s and 50s. The last entry was dated October 30th, 1955. Silas Thorne, room 13. Permanent. Below it, the page was blank. Until I turned it. There, in fresh dark ink that glistened like wet blood, were two new lines. Leo Vance, room 7. Ben Carter, room 8. My blood turned to ice. "Leo, look at this." My voice sounded thin. He peered over my shoulder. His smile vanished. "What the hell? That ink's wet. How did it know our names?" He flipped back frantically. All other entries were decades old. This was new. Too new. The hum deepened, vibrating the dust on the desk. The rain seemed to hush. Outside, the air grew colder, carrying that sweet rot smell stronger now. Leo snapped the ledger shut. "Okay, weird. Probably some creep messing with us, but look!" He shone his light out a broken window. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking. The setting sun painted the lake in fiery orange and purple. Golden hour. We stay. We get the shots. We leave at dawn. Easy. He didn't ask me. He just started unpacking his gear. The sign's words echoed in my head. Do not stay after sunset. But Leo's desperation was a stronger pull. We were broke. This was content. I stayed. Dinner was protein bars eaten on the porch steps, watching the sun bleed out over the water. The forest around the resort was unnaturally quiet. No crickets, no owls, just the lap of waves and the wind sighing through the pines. The resort loomed behind us, its dark windows like empty eyes. That low hum was constant now, a vibration in my teeth. As the last light faded, the temperature dropped sharply. My breath fogged in the air. Leo kept filming, his camera light cutting through the gathering gloom. "Almost dark," he murmured, not looking at me. "The real footage starts now." Darkness fell fast and thick. We used our flashlights. The beams felt weak, swallowed by the shadows inside the lobby. The hum grew louder, a deep thrumming in the floorboards. Then came the sounds, faint at first. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Like fingernails dragging slowly down the wallpaper in the hallway upstairs. It stopped outside room 7. Silence. Then a soft, wet click, like a throat clearing. I froze. Leo lowered his camera. "You hear that?" he whispered. We listened. Nothing. Then the scraping moved, stopped outside room 8. My door. I held my breath. The scraping didn't resume. It just waited. I didn't sleep. I sat on the dusty floor of room 8, back against the door, flashlight beam fixed on the hallway. The cold seeped through my jacket. The sweet rot smell was everywhere. The scraping sound never came back. But the feeling of being watched didn't leave. Dawn felt like a lifetime away. Morning light, gray and weak, finally filtered through the grimy window. The hum was gone. The cold lessened. Leo looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "It was at my door," he said quietly over instant coffee brewed on a camping stove in the lobby. "Just standing there, breathing that wet sound. I swear I heard it breathing." He wouldn't say more. We decided to explore before filming, maybe find something interesting to shoot. The lower floors were a maze of decay. A ballroom with a shattered chandelier, a dining room with chairs scattered like bones, a kitchen coated in thick gray sludge. The smell of rot was strongest here. In a small office, we found more ledgers, all ending in 1955, and photos, faded black and whites of smiling guests by the lake. A stern man in a suit standing before the fireplace, Silas Thorne. His eyes, even in the photo, seemed to follow you. We found the old guest cabins, small wooden structures behind the main building, half swallowed by the woods. Most were collapsed. Cabin 13 stood apart, slightly cleaner, its door slightly ajar. Inside, the smell hit us first. That sweet rot stench, overwhelming, mixed with the metallic tang of old blood. The walls weren't just peeling, they were scratched. Deep, frantic gouges covered every inch of floral wallpaper, as if something had tried desperately to claw its way out. At the foot of a stripped bed frame, the wooden floor was stained a dark, rusty brown. Leo raised his camera, his hand trembling. "This is it," he whispered. "This is the shot." He stepped closer. That's when the whispering started, not from one place, from the walls, from the floorboards, from the very air. A chorus of faint, overlapping voices, too quiet to make out words, but thick with a terrible longing and a chilling hunger. It wasn't English. It sounded older. Wrong. The subtonic hum surged, vibrating the floor under my boots, making my teeth ache. The weak morning light from the cabin window seemed to dim. "Leo!" I hissed, panic clawing at my throat. "We need to go. Now!" He didn't turn. He was focused on the viewfinder, zooming in on the scratched wall. "Just one more shot, Ben. This is real. This is gold." "Leo!" I grabbed his arm. He yelped, swinging around. His camera clattered to the dusty floor. His face was ashen. "Did you hear that?" he breathed. The whispering had stopped. The hum died. But the silence that followed was worse. Heavy. Waiting. From the darkness of the hallway behind us came a new sound. A slow, wet, dragging, like something heavy with no legs being pulled across the floor. Schlick, schlick, schlick. We ran. We didn't stop until we were back in the lobby of the main building, slamming the heavy front door shut behind us, leaning against it, gasping. The dragging sound stopped at the other side. Then a single, soft thump against the wood, like a head resting against it, waiting. We barricaded the lobby with overturned furniture, a useless gesture, but it made us feel less exposed. Hours crawled by. The weak daylight bled away. Shadows lengthened. The whispering started again, not just in the cabins now, but seeming to come from the lobby walls themselves. Faint, insistent, names. I thought I heard my own name woven into the sibilant chorus. Ben, Ben, stay. Leo paced like a caged animal. "We can't stay here tonight," he said, his voice raw. "We drive out now. Screw the Jeep getting stuck. We walk." But the forest outside the broken windows looked different at dusk. The trees seemed closer, their branches like grasping fingers. And the whispering, it was getting louder, clearer, no longer just names, phrases. Warm beds, hot supper, check in, stay forever. That's when I saw it, on the reception desk. The ledger lay open. I hadn't touched it since last night. But the page had turned. Below our names, written in that same dark, wet ink. Check out. Never. Leo saw it too. He made a small, broken sound. "It's not letting us leave," he whispered. "The rooms, they're not for sleeping. They're for keeping." The dragging sound started again, not from the cabins this time, from the staircase. Schlick, thud, schlick, thud. Something was coming down, slowly, deliberately. The whispering rose to a fever pitch, a cacophony of desperate voices filling the lobby. "Guests, new guests, sign the book, sign the book." The hum returned, stronger, vibrating the glass in the remaining window panes. Panic seized me. "The kitchen!" I yelled. "Back way out!" We scrambled towards the service corridor. The dragging sound was on the main floor now, close. The wet breathing filled the small space behind us. We burst into the kitchen. The back door was there, warped but intact. Hope flared. I grabbed the handle, yanked. It didn't budge. Seized shut. Leo threw his shoulder against it. Nothing. The dragging stopped. The wet breathing was right behind us in the kitchen doorway. I turned slowly. It wasn't Silas Thorne. It wasn't human. It was a shape formed from the decay of the place itself. Shadows clung to it like tattered rags. Its form shifted, sometimes tall and gaunt, sometimes hunched and dragging. Its lower half, melting into the filthy floor. Made of black mold, wet plaster, and rust, its face was just a suggestion of features in the darkness. 2 points of dull, ember-like light where eyes should be. It held no weapon. It didn't need one. The air around it shimmered with cold and that cloying stench. Its mouth opened, a ragged tear in the shadow stuff, and the whispering poured out, not from its throat, but from the walls, the pipes, the very floor. "Welcome home, rooms prepared, check in, check in, check in." Leo screamed, a raw animal sound. He turned and fled back towards the dining room. I followed, stumbling over debris. The thing didn't pursue. It just stood there in the kitchen doorway, watching, waiting. The whispering followed us. "Stay. Sign the book. Your names are there. You belong here now. Check in." We burst back into the lobby. Leo didn't hesitate. He sprinted for the main entrance. He grabbed the handles, threw his weight against the barricaded doors. They groaned, buckled slightly, but held fast. Boarded shut from the outside, he pounded on the wood, screaming for help into the encroaching night. "Let us out! Please, let us out!" I looked back toward the kitchen. The shadow figure hadn't moved. It just stood at the edge of the dining room watching. The whispering subsided to a low thrum. "Check in." It seemed to breathe with the building. Then I saw the ledger, open on the reception desk. The page had turned again. Below, "Check out. Never." 2 new lines had appeared, the ink glistening wetly, dark as fresh blood. Leo, Vance, room 7, checked in. Ben Carter, room 8, checked in. As I watched, the ink on my name seemed to pulse. A wave of crushing fatigue washed over me. The fear was still there, screaming in my mind, but my body felt leaden. The whispering softened, became soothing. Rest now. It breathed from the walls. Your room is ready. Warm bed. Safe. The image of that bare, dusty room filled my mind, not as a place of horror, but as a haven. The cold seeping into my bones didn't feel like threat anymore. It felt like cool sheets. The sweet rot smell was just the scent of old wood, of home. Leo had stopped pounding. He stood slumped against the doors, his face pressed to the wood. He turned slowly. His eyes were wide, but the panic was gone, replaced by a terrible, vacant calm. He looked at me, a small, serene smile touching his lips. "It's okay, Ben," he said, his voice dreamy. "The bed, it's so soft. Come see?" He turned back to the doors, not trying to open them, just leaning against them as if listening. Check in. The walls sighed. The fatigue pulled at me like chains. The whispering wasn't in the air anymore. It was inside my skull, gentle, insistent. Your name is written. You belong. Rest. My legs gave way. I sank to my knees on the dusty lobby floor. The shadow figure was gone from the dining room doorway, but I felt its presence everywhere, in the groan of the floorboards, in the drip of the gutter outside, in the slow decay of the walls. It wasn't a monster, it was the place. Silver pines, hungry, patient, and it had us. I didn't fight it. The weight was too much. The promise of rest too sweet. I crawled towards the stairs. Each step groaned, but the sound was familiar now, comforting, like the lodge was welcoming me home. Halfway up, I looked back. Leo was no longer by the doors. He was walking slowly, peacefully, down the dark hallway towards room 7. He didn't look back. I reached the second floor landing. The hallway stretched before me, the peeling wallpaper seeming to ripple in the gloom. Room 8's door stood slightly ajar. Moonlight streamed through the gap, illuminating dust motes dancing like stars. It looked warm inside, safe. My room. My name was written in the book. I belonged here. The whispering was a lullaby in my veins. Check in. It breathed, not from outside, but from within the very wood of the doorframe. Check in. I pushed the door open. The room was exactly as I'd left it. Bare floorboards, a stripped bed frame, the window showing the moonlit lake. But the air was warmer. The smell of decay was gone, replaced by a faint scent of lavender and old paper. On the bare springs of the bed frame lay a single, crisp white sheet. Invitation. Welcome. Home. I stepped inside. The door swung shut behind me with a soft, final click. The whispering didn't stop. It just changed. It wasn't urging me anymore. It was celebrating. A chorus of dry, papery voices, the sound of pages turning in a vast, unseen ledger. Guests arrived, rooms filled, names secured. It came from the walls, the floor, the window pane, from the rust on the bed frame, from the dust on the sill. Silver Pines was no longer silent. It was alive, and it was satisfied. I didn't get into the bed. I just stood by the window looking out at the moonlit lake. The water was still. The forest wasn't silent anymore. I could hear it breathing, a deep, slow rhythm that matched the pulse of the lodge itself. The subsonic hum was gone. In its place was a profound ancient quiet, broken only by the lap of water and the distant cry of a loon. A normal sound, but I knew better. That loon's cry echoed the whispering. "Check in," it seemed to say. "Check in." I turned from the window. The room was darker now. The moonlight had dimmed, but I could see the ledger. It lay open on the bare floorboards where no ledger had been before. My name glowed faintly on the page, the ink shimmering with that same dark warmth. Below it, the date wasn't today anymore. It was blank, waiting. The checkout date remained never. The door to the hallway was gone. The walls had shifted, the floral pattern now forming intricate spiraling patterns that seemed to draw the eye inward. The air grew warmer, heavier. The scent of lavender deepened, masking the underlined sweetness of decay. It wasn't a room anymore. It was a cell, a beautifully appointed tomb, my tomb. Leo's door was gone too, just seamless, whispering wallpaper. I didn't scream. The urge was there, buried deep, but the lodge soothed it away like a mother calming a child. "Rest," the walls breathed. "You are safe now. You are home." My body felt lighter, yet utterly immobile. My thoughts slowed, thickened like honey. The memory of the outside world, the car, the city, the life before the gate, began to fray. It felt distant, unimportant, a dream. This was real. The warmth, the quiet, the deep, resonant presence of silver pines settling around me like a comfortable blanket. My eyes grew heavy. The glowing ink of my name was the last thing I saw before the darkness pulled me under. Not sleep, not death. Something in between, a permanent check-in. The last coherent thought that flickered was understanding. Silver Pines wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was the ghost. A hungry ghost of a place, starved for life, for warmth, for the vibrant energy of guests long gone. It fed on the fear, yes, but more deeply, it fed on the surrender, on the acceptance of its embrace. Silas Thorne hadn't been the caretaker. He'd been the first course. The decades of silence weren't abandonment. They were digestion, waiting, starving. And now, fresh names were on the list. Warm bodies to fill the cold rooms. New voices to add to the whispering chorus that sustained the ancient rotting heart of the resort. Leo's serene smile flashed in my mind. He was already part of it, already singing with the walls. As the final threads of my old self dissolved into the pervasive warmth, into the soft, insistent whisper that was now my own breath, my own blood, I understood the true horror. It wasn't the dragging thing, or the scratched walls, or even the names appearing in the ledger. It was the relief. The awful, seductive comfort of giving up, of letting the hunger of the place fill the hollow spaces inside you. The resort didn't just take your life. It took your wanting to leave. It made you want to stay forever. The last thing I felt was the smooth, cool texture of the ledger's leather cover under my vanishing hand, and a profound, chilling certainty that echoed not just in the dead air of room 8, but in the very stones of Silver Pines, in the rustling leaves of the devouring forest, in the silent, patient earth beneath it all. We weren't trapped. We were welcome. We were home. And the guest list, written in ink that never faded, in names that never left, would never ever be complete. They were still checking in, and now so were we. The sign by the gate hadn't been a warning. It had been an invitation, one we'd foolishly accepted forever. And with that, this story comes to an end. Let's move on to the next one. There's a highway exit that doesn't exist. During the day, I rented a cheap room in an abandoned home, because, honestly, I had no other options. My bank account had bled dry after the layoff. My girlfriend had taken the cat and half the furniture, and the only thing I had left was a beat-up '98 Camry with balding tires and a tank that smelled faintly of gasoline and regret. When I saw the listing, private room, utilities included, $300 a month, no credit check, I didn't hesitate. Not even when the address pulled up on Google Maps as a blank, pixelated void somewhere off County Route 17, 20 miles past where the cell signal died and the road signs started rusting at the edges like old wounds. The house sat at the end of a gravel track that hadn't seen a tractor in 2 decades. 2 stories, clapboard siding grayed by decades of wind and neglect, a sagging porch that groaned under my weight like a man waking from a coma. The front door opened before I knocked. Swung, opened, slow, deliberate. A draft, I told myself, just pressure differential. The kind of thing you learn to rationalize when you're broke and tired and trying not to think about how your life became a series of diminishing returns. Inside, the air was thick, not with dust, but with stillness. The kind that presses against your eardrums, no hum of appliances, no distant traffic, no birds, just the creak of floorboards underfoot and a dry whisper of something shifting upstairs, though I told myself it was mice. It had to be mice. The landlord, if you could call him that, waited in the parlor, a gaunt man in a yellowed undershirt, his skin the color of weak tea. His name was Harlan, though he never offered it. I only learned it later, scrawled in pencil at the bottom of the lease, beneath the clause that read, "Tenant acknowledges awareness of local ordinances regarding nocturnal travel on County 17. I didn't think much of it at the time. I signed with a ballpoint pen that skipped like a stone over ice. He showed me the room. 2nd floor, rear corner, small but clean. Surprisingly so. A narrow bed, a dresser with 1 drawer missing, a window with warped glass overlooking a field of knee-high weeds and skeletal trees. There was no lock on the door. When I asked, Harlan just shook his head, eyes fixed somewhere past my shoulder. "Ain't no one coming in," he said, voice low, throaty, like gravel in a tin can. "And if they do, well, you'll know." I moved in that afternoon. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. I lay in bed listening to the house breathe, the pops and sighs of old timber contracting in the cooling air. At 2:17 a.m., I heard it. A thump from the hallway, not heavy, not aggressive, just there, like a book sliding off a shelf and landing spine down on the floor. I sat up, listened. Nothing. I told myself it was the house settling. That phrase became my mantra over the next few days. The house is settling. The wind shook a loose shingle, a raccoon in the attic, a branch against the window. But then came the knocking. 3 raps, soft, precise. Tap, tap, tap. Always at 2:15. Always from the hallway. I never opened the door. Not the first week, not even when, on the 4th night, the knocking was followed by a breath, a slow, wet inhalation just on the other side of the thin wood, like someone pressing their face against the keyhole and tasting the air inside my room. I started sleeping with a flashlight in my hand, a cheap mag light dented and sticky with old tape, and a steak knife from the kitchen. Harlan hadn't objected when I'd taken it, just nodded as if he'd expected it. Then came the road. I needed groceries. The nearest town, Galesburg, was supposedly 15 miles east. But when I pulled onto County 17 that afternoon, the sun high and indifferent, I drove for 40 minutes and saw nothing but buckled asphalt, overgrown ditches, and mile after mile of skeletal fence posts marching into the heat haze. No gas stations, no signs, not even a mailbox. My phone had no signal, but the GPS still flickered, a weak blue dot crawling eastward on a road that, according to the map, ended 3 miles past Harlan's place. A dead end, a cul-de-sac in the middle of nowhere. I turned around, and that's when I saw it, just past the bend where the trees leaned inward like conspirators. An exit ramp. It hadn't been there on the way out. A narrow, cracked concrete off-ramp, peeling away from the main road and descending into a thicket of black pines. A green sign, faded, nearly white, hung crooked on a rusted pole. Exit 13, Hollow 2, me. The W in hollow was rusted through, leaving only hollow, a word with a missing mouth. I slowed. There was no paint on the lines, no reflectors, no guardrail, just the ramp, vanishing into green shadow. I told myself it was old infrastructure, decommissioned, forgotten, maybe a logging road from the 50s, nothing sinister, just decay. But as I passed it, windows up, AC wheezing, I caught a flicker in the rear view. A figure standing at the top of the ramp, tall, thin, wearing a dark coat, even in the August heat. Not waving, not moving, just watching. I pressed the gas, didn't look back. That night, the knocking came earlier. 1:58 a.m., tap, tap, tap. Then silence, then a new sound, a drag, slow, laborious, like something heavy being pulled across the hallway floor. Shh, shh, shh. Stopping just outside my door, I held the flashlight in one hand, the knife in the other, knuckles white. The dragging stopped, a pause. Then, click, the doorknob turned, not all the way, just enough to disengage the latch. A quarter turn, deliberate, testing. I didn't breathe. The knob returned to its original position. Silence for 10 seconds. Then, thump, right against the door, like a shoulder, bumping it. Once. Then, thump, again, harder. The wood flexed inward a fraction. I scrambled back on the bed, heart jackhammer and flashlight beam trembling across the door as if it could hold it shut by sheer will. Thump. The third one made the hinges groan. And then nothing. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I went into the hallway. The floorboards outside my room were clean, no scuff marks, no drag lines, no splinters from impact. But the air smelled different. Not mildew, not dust. Wet earth. And something else. Coppery. Faint. Like old blood dried in the sun. I went downstairs. Harlan was in the kitchen stirring a pot of something dark and viscous on the stove. He didn't look up. "Did you hear anything last night?" I asked, voice raw. He paused. The spoon hovered. "Depends," he said. "On what?" He turned. His eyes were bloodshot, the sclera webbed with veins like cracked porcelain. "On whether you took the exit." I froze. "What? Exit?" He set the spoon down, wiped his hands on a rag that might have once been white. "There's a highway exit that doesn't exist during the day," he said flat. "Comes in after sundown, fades before sunrise, like mist." I laughed. It came out jagged. "That's insane." "Is it?" He stepped closer. His breath smelled of cloves and something sour. "You saw it, didn't you? The sign, the ramp." I didn't answer. "Exit 13, he murmured. "Hollow, not a town, a place. Used to be a rest stop back in the 40s. Gas pumps, diner, motel. Then the highway got rerouted, left it to rot. But the road remembers." "What is it?" I whispered. He looked at the window. The morning light was thin, gray, the kind that doesn't warm, just illuminates. "It's where things go when they're not wanted anymore," he said. "Lost cars, missing persons, bad memories, and people who don't belong anywhere else." I moved to leave. He caught my wrist. His grip was shockingly strong. "Don't drive County 17 after dark," he said. "And if you do, don't look for the exit. Don't slow down. Don't even think about it, because once you see it, it sees you back." I pulled free, spent the day cleaning the room, scrubbing the windowsill, checking the locks, even though there weren't any. I told myself I'd leave, pack up, find a hostel, sleep in the car if I had to, but $300 a month, and nowhere else to go. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, flashlight across my lap, knife beside it, watched the door. 1:30 a.m., 1:45, 1:55, 2 hour, no knock, no drag, no thump. I let out a slow breath. Maybe it was over. Maybe it had been stress, sleep deprivation, a mind cracking under the weight of failure. I lay back, closed my eyes, and that's when I heard the engine. Not outside, inside the house. A low guttural rumble, like an old V8 idling in the hallway. Impossible. I sat up. The sound deepened. A transmission clunked, metal on metal, right outside my door. Then click, click, click. The turn signal, left, left, left. Over and over. I grabbed the flashlight, switched it on. The beam was weak, battery dying, but it cut a shaky cone across the floorboards. The doorknob turned, slowly, fully this time. The door creaked open, just 6 inches. Darkness beyond, and the smell, God, the smell, gasoline, hot rubber, burnt oil, and beneath it, rot, wet, sweet decay. I raised the knife. "Who's there?" My voice cracked. No answer. Just the click, click, click. Then the headlights. 2 pale yellowish beams slid across the ceiling, inside the room, casting long, wavering shadows down the walls, not shining through. The door, shining from behind it, as if a car were parked in the hallway, a car that shouldn't fit, a car that couldn't fit. The beams pulsed, brightened, dimmed, brightened again, like eyes adjusting to the dark. I backed toward the window. The floorboard under my heel squealed. The turn signal stopped. Silence. Then a door opened. Not my door, a car door. The heavy hydraulic thump of a frame-bending sedan door swinging wide on rusted hinges from the hallway, followed by footsteps, not on wood, on gravel. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Getting closer, I fumbled with the window latch, rusted stiff, prying it with my fingers until my nail split and warm blood slicked the metal. The footsteps stopped, right outside my door. The gap widened. A hand appeared, pale, veined, fingers too long, knuckles swollen like knots in rope. It gripped the edge of the door, pushed. The door swung open. The hallway wasn't there. Instead, blacktop, cracked, oil-stained asphalt stretched into darkness, lined with broken reflectors and dead weeds pushing through fissures. A road, and parked at the edge of it, facing my room like a predator at a den. Entrance was a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air, 2-tone green and cream, chrome grille grinning like a skull, tires flat, rims rusted through, one headlight out. The other, the one that had swept my ceiling, glowed faintly, filament trembling. The driver's door hung open. The gravel crunched again. I turned. He stood in the center of my room, tall, gaunt, wearing a chauffeur's cap pulled low, the brim casting his face in shadow. His coat was long, black, stained at the hem with something dark and flaking. His hands hung at his sides, palms open, fingers slightly curled. He didn't speak, didn't move, just looked. I knew with a certainty that froze my marrow that he wasn't breathing. And then he did. A wet, rattling inhale like a lung full of silt. His head tilted, slowly, to the left, then to the right. And from the darkness beneath the cap's brim, 2 points of light kindled. Not eyes. Headlights. Dim. Yellow. Flickering. Click, click, click. The turn signal started again. He took a step forward. I threw the flashlight. It passed through him. Shattered against the far wall. He didn't flinch. Another step. I scrambled onto the windowsill, yanked the sash up. Wood screamed, and threw myself out. Landed hard on the overgrown lawn, rolled, came up running. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until I reached the Camry. Fumbled the keys, started the engine, burned gravel down the drive, hit County 7 doing 60, drove east. Sunrise was a thin smear of peach on the horizon. I glanced at the clock on the dash. 5:48 a.m., safe, almost safe. Then I saw it, up ahead, the off-ramp, still there, in the dawn light. Concrete cracked, weeds bursting through the sign. Hollow, hanging even more crookedly. Impossible. It wasn't supposed to be there, not now. I slowed. My foot hovered over the brake. Don't look for the exit. Don't slow down. Don't even think about it. But I had thought about it all night, and now it was waiting. The ramp wasn't empty. The Bel Air sat at the top, facing the highway, engine off, driver's door closed, steam curled from the hood. I pressed the gas, but the Camry stuttered, coughed. The engine light blinked on, then the radio came to life, static. Then a voice, low, distorted, playing through a speaker full of water. Final destination, passenger required, please exit at Hollow. I slammed the power button. The voice didn't stop. Service is mandatory. Non-compliance results in retrieval. I yanked the fuse. The voice cut. Silence, except for the click, click, click. From the glove compartment, I opened it. The turn signal lever lay inside. Green plastic, worn smooth, still blinking. Left, left, left. I threw it out the window, kept driving. The road straightened, trees thinned. I could see the first signs of Galesburg, water tower in the distance, a faint smear of smoke from a chimney. Relief flooded me, warm, dizzying. Then the Camry lurched. The engine died, coasted to a stop. I turned the key. Nothing. Click, click, click. The hazard lights blinked on front and rear, casting the interior in a pulsing amber glow. I got out, walked to the front of the car, popped the hood. Steam rose in thin curls. The engine was cold, ice cold, and in the center of the radiator grill, wedged between the slats, was a small rusted sign. I reached in, pulled it free. It was a replica of a highway marker, green enamel, chipped. Exit 13, Hollow 0, Miawa, 0 miles. I turned. The Bel Air sat behind me. 10 feet away, a driver's door open. The chauffeur stood beside it, hat off now. His face wasn't decayed. It was smooth, waxy, like a mannequin dipped in beeswax. No mouth, no nose, just 2 hollows where eyes should be, filled with swirling amber light. He raised a hand, not to beckon, to invite. Behind him, the off-ramp wasn't a ramp anymore. It was a tunnel, a low-arched concrete passage like an old storm drain, descending into blackness. And from deep within it came the sound of a diner jukebox playing a warped 45. You'll never leave. You'll never leave. You'll never... The record skipped. I ran. Not toward the car, not toward the road, toward the field, through the weeds. Thorns tore my jeans. Brambles snagged my arms. I didn't stop, didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned and my vision tunneled, collapsed behind a fallen oak, gasping, waited, listened, no engine, no footsteps, no click, 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 just wind in the grass. I stayed there until the sun was high, until birds returned, until the world felt real again. I walked back to the Camry at noon. It started on the first try, drove straight to Galesburg, checked into a motel, paid for a week in cash, showered for 20 minutes, scrubbed, my skin raw. That night, I lay on the stiff motel bed, lights on, TV, blaring infomercials. 2:17 a.m., the TV flickered, static, then a single frame, a green sign. Hollow. Then the screen went black, but the click, click, click remained from inside the wall. I left Galesburg at dawn, drove west, didn't stop for gas, didn't answer my phone when it finally got signal and buzzed with missed calls. Harlan's number over and over. I crossed state lines, found a town with no highways nearby, rented a basement apartment, concrete walls, no windows, bolted the door from the inside, bought a deadbolt, a chain, a steel bar, slept with a knife under my pillow. For 3 weeks, nothing, no knocks, no engines, no turn signals. I began to believe I'd escaped. Then, last Tuesday, I needed milk. The grocery store was 2 blocks away. I walked. It was raining, light, steady, the kind that soaks you without you noticing. Halfway there, I passed an alley, narrow, dark, and at the far end, where brick met shadow, I saw it, a green sign, mounted on a rusted pole, tilted. Hollow. I froze, turned back, ran home, bolted the door. That night, I drilled a hole in the floor, went down into the crawl space, dug 2 feet down. My shovel hit metal. I cleared the dirt, a manhole cover, rusted iron. In the center, stamped in flaking paint, Exit 13. I poured gasoline over it, lit a match. The flame caught, blue and hungry, then sucked downward as if the hole had inhaled it. From below came the sound of tires on wet pavement, and a voice, dry, papery, whispering up through the gap. You're already on the list. I moved again, this time an apartment above a laundromat in a city of 3 million. Noise all night. People below. Street lights flooding the fire escape. Safe. It's been 10 days. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch. I keep the curtains closed. I check the locks hourly. I don't answer the door, not even for food. I eat crackers, canned beans, anything that doesn't require delivery. Tonight, the rain returned, a slow drumming on the roof. I'm writing this at the kitchen table. Laptop screen, the only light. The apartment is quiet, too quiet. The laundromat closed at 10. The street outside is silent. No sirens, no footsteps, just rain. And, wait, there it is. Faint. From the hallway. Tap, tap, tap. 2:17. I'm not imagining it. I know I'm not. I stand, walk to the door, press my ear against the wood. Listen, nothing. Then a drag. Shk, shk, shk. Stopping, right outside. A pause. Then, click. The doorknob turns, a quarter turn, testing. My hand is on the deadbolt. I could lock it, but I don't, because I realize something. It's not trying to get in. It's waiting for me to open it, to step out, to choose. The knocking starts again. Not 3, 4 this time. Tap, 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 tap. Then 5. Tap, 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 tap. Counting up, like a countdown or an invitation. I look at the window. Fire escape, rusted iron. 3 stories down. I could make it. Maybe. But then what? Where do you run when the exit follows you? When it's not a place on a map, but a state? A condition. A destination you carry in your bones. The doorknob turns again. Fully. The latch disengages. The door creaks open just an inch. Darkness beyond. And the smell. Wet asphalt. Hot engine. Old blood. I hear the clunk of a car door, then gravel. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Coming closer. I don't reach for the knife. I don't move. I just stand there. Because I know he's not here to take me. He's here to drive me. And the thing is, I'm so tired. The rain sounds like static, like a radio tuning between stations. And deep down, so deep I barely admit it to myself, I wonder what's at the end of that ramp. If it's worse than this, if it's better. The door opens wider, headlights sweep across the ceiling, yellow, flickering, click, click, click. The turn signal, left, left, left. I take a breath, step forward, reach for the door, and as my fingers brush the cold metal, I hear it, not from the hallway, from inside the apartment, behind me. A new sound, a soft, rhythmic thump, like something heavy, being pulled across the floor from the bedroom. Shh, shh, shh. Stopping. At the kitchen doorway, I turn, slowly. The hallway light is off, but the kitchen is lit by two pale yellow beams shining in from the living room, and standing in the archway is me, wearing my coat, my face pale, waxy, eyes hollow, filled with amber light. He raises a hand, not to threaten, to welcome, and in his other hand he holds the turn signal lever, still blinking, left, left, left. He smiles, no teeth, just darkness, and whispers with my voice, "You're already here." Outside, the rain stops. The city holds its breath. Somewhere, far away, a green sign swings gently in the wind. Hollow. And the ramp waits. It always waits, because exits don't disappear. They just change drivers. And that's where this story ends. Let's move on to the next one. All hallway mirrors reflected the same guest, even in sealed rooms. I took the job at the Sealbach because the eviction notice was taped to my apartment door, and the only thing left in my bank account was $3.78. The Craigslist ad was sparse. Night clerk, Sealbach Hotel, $300 cash, week, must start tonight. Bring own flashlight. No photos, no address beyond downtown Nashville, alley behind the old Opera House. I found it at 11 p.m., a hulking Beaux-Arts relic from 1912, its grand entrance boarded up with plywood stamped, "Condemned, Structural Failure." The side door, marked "Staff Entrance, Hazmat Only," creaked open before I could knock. Lester stood there, late 70s, spine curved like a question mark, uniform 2 sizes too big. His eyes were the color of dried blood, fixed on a point just over my shoulder. He didn't offer a handshake, just thrust a brass key into my palm. Shifts midnight to 6, front desk only, no housekeeping, no room service. You answer the phone if it rings, which it won't. You log arrivals, which there won't be, and you never look directly at the mirrors. "What mirrors?" I asked, shivering in the unheated hallway. "All of them." He shuffled past me into the gloom, gesturing with a gnarled finger. Hallways, elevators, even the sealed rooms, they all show the same guest, the one who never checks out. He stopped at the front desk, a cavernous marble counter coated in dust. Behind it sat a ledger book bound in cracked leather. "Sign in. Your name's already there." I flipped open the ledger. Every page was filled with identical entries in different handwritings, all in fading blue ink. Guest, Daniel Finch. Checked in. Never. Room, 713. Notes: mirror reflection active, sealed room confirmed, do not acknowledge. My name, Jamie Russo, was scrawled at the bottom in fresh ink. Beneath it, a new line formed as I watched. Shift start, 12:01 a.m. Lester's breath hitched. You saw it write itself, didn't you? He didn't wait for an answer. Daniel Finch, drowned in the Cumberland River, 1958, age 7. His mother jumped in after him. The river couldn't keep them both. The sealbach took what was left. He tapped the ledger. This hotel doesn't forget. It collects. Grief. Guilt. The things people bury so deep, they forget they're carrying them. The mirrors. They're not glass. They're doors. And Daniel's been waiting behind them for someone to remember him. He vanished into a service elevator before I could ask more. The doors groaned shut, sealing him in the darkness. Midnight. The lobby lights dimmed automatically, plunging the space into gloom broken only by emergency exit signs. I sat at the front desk, the ledger open before me. Dust motes danced in the weak green light. And then I saw the first mirror, mounted above the concierge desk. Floor-to-ceiling tarnished silver frame. It reflected the empty lobby perfectly, except for one detail. In the glass, standing near the grand staircase, was a boy, 7 years old, dripping wet, hair plastered to his forehead, a faded blue baseball cap. He held a waterlogged teddy bear. His eyes were open, wide, unblinking. Staring directly at my reflection, I spun around. The lobby was empty. I turned back to the mirror. The boy was gone. Only my own pale, hollow-eyed face stared back. I told myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, the flickering light. But when I checked the ledger again, a new note had appeared beneath my name. Mirror sighting number 1. Guest acknowledged. 1:17 a.m. I patrolled the second-floor hallway to stay awake. Every 20 feet, a mirror hung on a wall. Each one reflected the same scene: the decaying hallway, peeling wallpaper, shattered light fixtures. But in every mirror, the boy stood in a different spot, leaning against a doorframe, sitting on the floor, drawing with invisible crayons. Standing behind me, close, enough to touch my shoulder. I kept my eyes down, focused on the carpet, a threadbare crimson pattern slick with something dark and damp. Room 214's door was boarded shut with plywood stamped, "Hazardous materials, do not enter." Yet, in the mirror opposite it, I saw the room's interior, intact. Moonlight streaming through a window, and in the center of the room, on a narrow bed, sat the boy, Daniel Finch. He rocked slowly, hugging the teddy bear. His lips moved. No sound came through the glass, but I knew the words from the Aurora Grand's key cards, from Camp Everstill's journal. He promised he'd read to me. I backed away, heart hammering. The mirror on the next landing showed him standing now, pointing at me, not with his finger, with the teddy bear's paw. 3:03 a.m. The phone rang. I jumped. The sound was deafening in the silence. I grabbed the receiver. Sealback Hotel. Static. Then a child's voice gurgling wet. "Room 713, cold, so cold. I'm sorry, we're not—" "He forgot my story," Daniel whispered. "The one about the boat, the one that doesn't sink." The line went dead. I checked the ledger. A new entry formed. Guest request. Story denied. Thermal anomaly detected in room 713. Room 713 was on the 7th floor. The elevator was out of service, its brass cage hanging open over a shaft of utter blackness. I took the stairs. Each flight grew colder. By the 5th floor, my breath fogged in the air. The 7th floor hallway was pitch black. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, illuminating dust hanging like cobwebs. Every mirror I passed showed Daniel, closer, closer. In the last mirror before room 713, he stood right behind my reflection, his small hand resting on my shoulder. Room 713's door was sealed with police tape and a steel plate bolted over the lock. Yet moonlight bled through the keyhole, and in the mirror across the hall I saw the room clearly. Daniel sat on the bed, knees drawn to his chest. The window was open. Rain fell inside, pooling on the floorboards. He looked up, not at the window, at the mirror, at me. "Read to me," he mouthed. I ran. Back at the front desk, I packed my duffel. Screw the $300, screw Lester. I'd sleep in my car, anything but this. As I shouldered my bag, the lobby mirror caught my eye. Daniel stood alone in the reflection, not in the staircase, not behind me. In the mirror itself, stepping out of the glass like it was water, his bare feet made no sound on the marble floor. He carried the teddy bear. His baseball cap dripped dark water onto the ledger book. He opened it, turned to the page with my name, dipped a small finger into the puddle on the floor, wrote, "Jamie Russo, room 703, vacancy filled." I slammed the ledger shut, grabbed my keys, flung open the front doors, and froze. The street outside wasn't Nashville. It was a forest at twilight, ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss. Still, black lake reflecting a moon that shouldn't exist. And on the shore, facing away from me, stood Daniel. He turned, water weeds tangled in his hair. His eyes were the color of river mud. In his hand, he held a silver key card stamped 7. "Third stars. Almost time," he gurgled. I slammed the door shut, locked him, leaned against the wood, gasping. That's when I saw the note taped to the inside of the door. Neat, blocky handwriting on hotel stationery. They watch through the glass. They wait in the between. Covering the mirror traps them with you. Breaking it lets them out. The only way to leave is to let them in. Don't trust your reflection. It's not yours anymore. Eleanor Voss. From Camp Everstill. From the bellwether logs. How is this connected? My head spun. I remembered the hole in the woods, the bones wrapped in burlap, the journal entry about the warm floorboards. Were they all threads in the same rotten tapestry? The same hunger that lived in stillness? Lester found me sitting on the front desk, shaking. He didn't ask what I'd seen, just sighed, a sound like dry leaves crumbling. "Eleanor tried to fight them," he rasped, "tried to seal the mirrors. But glass isn't a wall, it's a doorway, and doorways have two sides." He crouched beside me, his breath sour with decay. "You think you're the first to run? They always run, until they realize the only way out is through." "Through what?" "Through the reflection." He tapped his chest. "They take what you carry, the pain, the guilt, the things that make you heavy. They feed on it. And when you're empty, you stay, like Daniel, like all the others." He stood up, brushing dust from his knees. "Finish your shift, or don't. It doesn't matter. The mirrors choose who stays." Dawn was hours away. I barricaded myself in the staff room, a closet-sized space behind the desk with a cot and a hot plate. No mirrors. I covered the single window with a blanket. Sat on the cot with my back to the door, listening to the silence. It wasn't quiet. It was waiting. At 4:47 a.m., the silence broke. A soft tap, tap, tap on the door, like fingernails. "Go away," I whispered. The tapping stopped. Then a child's voice, muffled but clear. "I brought you a story." I didn't move, didn't breathe. A piece of paper slid under the door. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was a crayon drawing. A stick figure boy and a stick figure man in a boat on a scribbled black lake. The words at the top, in wobbly letters, Daddy and Daniel, the boat that doesn't sink. Beneath it, in the same handwriting as the ledger, he promised he'd rid to me. He lied. Memories flooded me, memories I'd buried for 20 years. My father's boat on the Cumberland, me, age 7, begging him to take me fishing. His laugh. Next time, Jamie, promise. The next time never came. He left that night, left us, left Mom to drown in vodka and tears, while I learned to be the adult at 10 years old. I'd buried the anger, buried the promise he broke, buried the little boy who still waited on that dock. The doorknob rattled. I threw the drawing into the corner. "I'm not your daddy," I shouted. "I never promised you anything." Silence. Then slowly the door handle turned, not by a hand, by itself. The lock clicked open. I backed into the corner as the door swung inward. Daniel stood there, not dripping, not bloated, just a boy in a dry blue baseball cap holding the teddy bear. His eyes were clear, sad. "You carry him," he whispered. "The boy on the dock, the one who waits, he's cold, like me." He pointed to my chest. "The stillness feels him. It's hungry." I sank to my knees. Tears streamed down my face. "I couldn't save her," I choked out. The words came unbidden, raw. My mom, after he left, she walked into the river one winter. I was 12. I should have stopped her. I should have been stronger. Daniel nodded. The river took her, but it couldn't keep her guilt. The stillness took it, like it took my daddy's broken promise. He held out the teddy bear. "Sit with me, in the chair, in room 713. The story won't end until you tell it." He led me through the empty lobby. The mirrors showed only us now. No distorted reflections, no shifting shadows. Just a broken man and a drowned boy walking hand in hand toward the stairs. Room 713's steel plate was gone. The door stood open. Inside, the room was intact. Moonlight streamed through the window, showing not Nashville, but the black expanse of the Cumberland River on a winter night. Ice crusted the edges. On the bed sat an armchair. Facing the window, my mother's favorite chair from our old house, the one she'd rocked me to sleep in before the vodka won. On the seat cushion lay a single item. My father's old fishing hat, stained with river water. Daniel climbed onto the chair, patted the space beside him. "He's waiting too," he said softly. "Your daddy, in the water. He carries the promise he broke." I sat down. The chair was warm. The floral upholstery felt like home. Outside the window, the river cleared. My mother floated there, not bloated, not broken, but as I remembered her before the sadness. Bright eyes, singing off-key to the radio. She pressed a palm against the glass. Her mouth moved. No sound came through, but I knew the words she'd whispered the night she left. "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger for you." Behind her, in the dark water, a figure emerged. My father, younger, sober, his face ravaged with regret. He held out a hand, not to me, to the boy on the dock, the 7-year-old me who still waited with a fishing rod and a heart full of hope. Daniel placed the teddy bear in my lap. It was warm, real. "Read the story," he whispered. I looked at the crayon drawing in my hand, the boat, the figures, the words, and I read, my voice steady, for the first time in decades. Once there was a boy named Daniel, and his daddy promised to take him fishing in a boat that didn't sink. But the river was hungry, and promises are heavy. So the stillness took them both, and now they wait for someone to remember, for someone to finish the story. The teddy bear emptied itself of river water. The fishing hat on the chair dried. My mother's reflection smiled, a real smile, crinkling the corners of her eyes. My father nodded. The little boy on the dock lowered his fishing rod. Let it go. Daniel took my hand. His skin was no longer cold, just small, human. Good, he whispered. Now you remember. Now you can stay. He led me to the window. The glass rippled like water. I stepped through. The river was warm, silent. The others made room in their circle, my mother, my father, the boy from the dock. Sarah Miller floated nearby, humming, "Row, row, row your boat." Eleanor Voss sat on the silt, brushing her hair. Mildred. Calloway held out a teacup filled with starlight. Above us, the surface shimmered. Through it, I saw the Seelbach lobby. The armchair in room 7113 sat empty, facing the window. The ledger book lay open on the front desk. The final entry read, Jamie Russo, room 7113, story completed, vacancy filled. Downstairs, the morning porter found the ledger. No record of a night clerk named Jamie Russo. But at the Obsidian Tower, the ancient elevator operator placed a fresh brass key on the service elevator floor. It was warm. At the bellwether, Doris wrote a new log entry. Room 1314. Guest, the porter from Nashville. Order, hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Notes, tray returned empty. Marshmallows replaced with river stones. And in the hallway of the Seelbach Hotel, every mirror, sealed rooms, boarded-up floors, the grand staircase, showed the same scene. A boy in a blue baseball cap, sitting in an armchair, facing the window, holding a teddy bear, waiting for the next story to begin. And this story ends here. The next one begins now. The mountain lodge that wasn't there during the daylight. I never should have taken that shortcut. It was late October, the tail end of leaf season in Vermont's Green Mountains, and I was driving back from a photography gig in Stowe. Just some wedding portraits for a couple who wanted rustic authenticity in their album. I'd stayed later than planned, wrapping equipment under a bruised twilight sky, and by the time I pulled on to Route 100 South, the GPS had already blinked out twice. My phone showed one bar. The rental, a dented Subaru Outback with mismatched hubcaps, rattled over frost-heaved pavement as the road narrowed, twisting deeper into the woods. Pines pressed in on both sides, their crowns knitted together like hands in prayer, shutting out the stars. That's when I saw the sign. Not official, nothing from V-Trans. Just a splintered wooden plank nailed to a leaning pine, painted in peeling white. Lodge to Mie. Below it, a hand-scrawled addition in red. Cheapest in the range. Heat. Shower. No name, no logo. Just an arrow pointing down an unmarked gravel track, barely wider than my car. I hesitated. My tank was below a quarter. The next service station was, according to the fading map I'd printed before the trip, another 40 miles, and the temperature gauge on the dash had started dipping toward freezing. I'd driven past 2 shuttered motels already, their windows boarded, roofs sagging under decades of snow load. This felt reckless, but the word shower glowed in my mind like a promise. I'd been living out of a backpack for 3 days. My clothes smelled like campfire and stale coffee, and the idea of pulling over on the shoulder, sleeping upright in the driver's seat while frost feathered the windshield. No. I turned. The gravel crunched under the tires, loud and brittle, like snapping bones. Branches scraped the side mirrors. After half a mile, the trees opened slightly, revealing a steep slope dropping away to the west, the valley below, already swallowed in indigo shadow. And then there it was. Perched on a rocky outcrop, half hidden by hemlocks and birch, sat a lodge. Not grand, not elegant, but solid. 2 stories of dark-stained timber, a steep, shingled roof heavy with moss, a stone chimney jutting crookedly. Light spilled from 3 windows on the ground floor, warm, amber, flickering slightly, as if lit by oil lamps or a fire. Smoke curled from the chimney in slow, deliberate spirals. The porch sagged in the middle, its railings missing spindles, but it held a rocking chair, empty, still swaying, just a fraction, as though someone had risen seconds before I arrived. My headlights swept over a hand-painted sign above the front door, Hemlock Rest, faded but legible. Below, in smaller script, Esther, 1923 longs. I parked beside a rusted pickup with no tires, its bed filled with damp leaves and the skeletal remains of a deer. No other vehicles. I grabbed my duffel, locked the car. More habit than hope, and climbed the porch steps. They groaned under my weight, each one a complaint. The front door wasn't locked. It swung inward with a low, wet creak. Inside, the air was thick, not musty exactly, but dense, like walking into a room where someone had just stopped speaking. The heat was real, radiating from a cast-iron stove in the corner, its door ajar, embers pulsing deep orange. A single kerosene lantern hung from a beam, casting long, wavering shadows across floorboards worn smooth by time. The furniture was mismatched. A sagging sofa upholstered in frayed floral, 2 armchairs with horsehair stuffing leaking from the arms, a pine table littered with old National Geographics, and a chipped ceramic mug. "Hello?" I called. My voice sounded too loud, too sharp. No answer. But from somewhere above, a floorboard creaked, then another, slow, deliberate, like footsteps pacing. A door opened on the far wall, not slammed, just pushed inward gently as if by a draft. Behind it, a narrow hallway, at its end, a staircase, carpeted in a threadbare runner the color of dried blood. "Anyone here?" I tried again, forcing calm into my tone. Silence. Then a whisper of cloth, a rustle like pages turning. I stepped forward, drawn not by courage, but by the sheer, stupid inertia of exhaustion. The hallway smelled of cedar and something else. Damp wool, maybe, or old paper left too long in a basement. The stairs groaned as I climbed, each step sinking slightly under my weight, as though the wood were still settling, still alive. On the second floor, a single door stood ajar. Light bled from the crack, a soft, yellow light, like candlelight. I pushed it open. The room was small, a narrow bed covered in a patchwork quilt, a dresser with a cracked mirror, a window looking out over the slope, now black with night, and on the nightstand, a brass key, resting beside a single taper candle unlit. Beside it, a handwritten note, ink faded but still legible. Room 3, $20 cash, leave it on the dresser, towels in the armoire, water's cold, heater works if you stoke the stove downstairs. Quiet after 10. No signature, no date. I dropped my bag, peeled off my jacket, and sat on the edge of the bed. The springs gave a metallic sigh. I pulled out 2 crumpled 20s and left them on the dresser. Then, because I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, I walked to the window and peered out. Nothing, just trees, swaying in a wind I couldn't feel inside. No moon, No stars. The darkness was absolute, clinging to the glass like tar. I turned back and froze. The candle on the nightstand was lit, not smoking, not sputtering, just there, flame steady, casting a pool of gold on the quilt. I hadn't touched it. I was certain. I'd set the key down, left the money, but the candle, it had been unlit, wick intact, no matches in sight. I blew it out. The smoke curled upward, thin and gray, and vanished. I told myself it was a draft, a trick of the light. Exhaustion. I washed up in the tiny ensuite bathroom, a porcelain sink stained brown at the drain, a mirror fogged at the edges, a shower stall with a rusted curtain rod and no curtain. The water did run, icy and metallic tasting. I brushed my teeth with bottled water, splashed my face, and crawled into bed, fully clothed, duffel bag at my feet like a talisman. The lantern downstairs dimmed. The embers in the stove popped. I lay there, listening. At first, just the usual night sounds, the house settling, the wind in the eaves, the distant hoot of an owl. But then, something else, a tapping. Not on the window, not on the roof. Inside the wall, 3 soft knocks. Pause. 3 more, like someone rapping their knuckles against wood. Tap, 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 tap. Steady, rhythmic, coming from the wall behind a headboard. I held my breath. It stopped. Then a new sound, a low, wet dragging, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Shh, shh, shh. From the hallway outside my door, I sat up. The doorknob turned, slowly, smoothly, not with a rattle or a click, but with the quiet certainty of something that knew the mechanism intimately. The door opened 3 inches, darkness beyond. Nothing moved in the gap, no shape, no breath, just black. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. Screen lit up. 11:47 p.m. No signal. Camera app opened by accident. I must have bumped it. The lens faced the door. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The door creaked open another inch, and in the phone screen, reflected in the black glass of the display, I saw it. Not in the hallway. Not outside. Behind me, in the mirror on the dresser, a figure stood at the foot of the bed. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like an old wool coat, collar turned up. Its head was tilted slightly as if studying me. No face, not obscured, not shadowed, just absent, where features should have been. There was only a smooth, pale oval, like uncarved marble. I didn't scream. My body locked, every muscle seized, my heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird in a cage. I looked down, just for a second, to confirm my hands were still on the quilt. When I looked back at the phone screen, the reflection was gone. The door was closed. Silence. I didn't sleep. Not really. I dozed in fits, jerking awake at every creak, every sigh of the house. At 3:18 a.m., the candle relit itself. This time, I watched the wick blacken, then glow, then burst into flame. No spark, no match, no hand, just ignition. I blew it out again. My hands were shaking. At 4:55 a.m., the dragon sound returned, closer, not in the hall this time. Under the bed, a slow, grating scrape. Shh. Then a pause, then again, as if something were shifting its weight. Breathing. I sat rigid, knees drawn to my chest, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. 1, 2, 3. A sigh. Not mine. Warm, moist, against the back of my neck. I didn't move, didn't blink. It came again, longer this time. A sigh of relief, of recognition. Then a whisper, so soft it might have been the wind through a crack in the window. "You came back." I bolted. I was down the stairs in 3 leaps, stumbling, catching myself on the banister as a splinter bit into my palm. The front door was unlocked. I wrenched it open and stumbled onto the porch, gasping, the cold air like needles in my lungs. Dawn was breaking, not sunrise, not yet. But the eastern sky had lightened to a cold, ashen gray. The valley below was veiled in mist, thin and silvery. I turned back to the lodge, ready to run to my car, ready to drive until the tank ran dry, and stopped. The lodge was gone, not collapsed, not burned. Gone. Where the porch had sagged, where the chimney had leaned, where the Hemlock Rest sign had hung, there was only a bare rock outcrop, slick with dew, crowned with twisted birch and stunted pines. A few rotted timbers lay half buried in ferns, blackened by time. A stone foundation, moss-covered, crumbled at the corners, and in the center of it, a single rusted hinge, half submerged in loam. My car sat where I'd parked it beside the tireless pickup, but the pickup, it looked different, more decayed. Its bed wasn't just filled with leaves, it was filled in. Soil packed tight, saplings growing up through the wheel wells. I stood there, barefoot, I hadn't even put my boots on, shivering, my breath pluming in the air. Had I dreamed it? But my palm stung. I looked down. A fresh splinter, deep and dark, embedded near the base of my thumb. And on my jeans, the faint, damp imprint of the quilt's pattern, interlocking stars and moons stitched in faded blue thread. I drove. No GPS, no radio, just the road, winding down, the mist thinning as the sun finally breached the ridge. I passed a mile marker. Hemlock Gap. 3 men, then another Hemlock Gap. Botwa. At the base of the mountain, where the road straightened, I saw it. A small, weathered plaque, mounted on a granite boulder beside a pull-off. I stopped. The plaque was bronze, green with patina. The inscription was worn but legible, in memory of the guests and staff of Hemlock Rest Lodge, lost in the fire of November 3rd, 1957. 14 souls. May they rest in peace. Below, in smaller type, site closed to the public. No remains recovered. I stared at it. November 3rd. 30 days from now. My hands were numb on the wheel. I turned the key. The engine caught. I drove for an hour before I dared check my phone. It buzzed as soon as service returned. 12 missed calls, 6 voicemails, 3 texts, all from my sister. Where are you? Mom's been trying to call. Dad's in the hospital. It's bad. Call me, please. I pulled over at a gas station outside Waterbury, filled the tank, bought coffee, sat in the car, staring at the steam rising from the cup. The barista, a kid with a nose ring and a Ben and Jerry's hoodie, leaned out the window as I paid. You okay, man? You look like you seen a ghost. I forced a smile. Long night. He nodded, glanced past me up the road toward the mountains. Yeah, happens up there. Old roads play tricks, especially near Hemlock Gap. I froze. You know it? Sure. Used to hike up there as a kid. Before they closed the trail. He wiped the counter. Place burned down in the 50s. Lodge, whole thing. Story goes, the night watchman, he stayed behind, tried to save the guest register, got trapped in the west wing. He shrugged. They never found his body. Just the register. Open to November 3rd. All the names. Crossed out. Except one. What name? My voice was hoarse. He looked at me, really looked, and his expression shifted. Not suspicion. Something softer. Pity. Doesn't matter, he said, quietly. Some names, they stick around. I drove to the hospital. Dad made it. Barely, a massive stroke. They said he wouldn't speak again, that he'd be in rehab for months, maybe years. I sat by his bed that night, holding his hand, watching the monitor blink green and steady. At 11:47 p.m., the same time the candle had lit, the heart monitor stuttered. Just once, a flat line, half a second, then back to rhythm. I looked up. The curtain around the next bed was drawn, but beneath it, I saw feet, bare feet, pale, thin, toes slightly curled, not moving, just waiting. The next morning, while Dad slept, I went to the hospital's small library, old microfilm archives, local papers. I fed quarters into the machine, scrolled through brittle pages of the Green Mountain Chronicle. November 5th, 1957. Fire claims historic lodge. Believed to have started in the stovepipe of the main hearth. Evacuation hampered by faulty wiring and locked. Secondary exits? 14 confirmed dead. Among them, owner Elias Crow, 52, cook Martha Bell, 48, maintenance man Robert Voss, 39. One guest unaccounted for, male, mid-30s, signed in as J. Doe, paid cash. No ID recovered. Room 3. Room 3. I scrolled backward. October 29th, 1957. A small ad, bottom corner of page 7, Hemlock Rest Lodge, open year-round. Heat, hot water, 5 night. Ask for Elias. Below it, in the classifieds, lost. Pocket watch, silver, engraved JV 1921. Reward, last seen near Hemlock Gap Trailhead. Contact J. Doe, C.O. Hemlock Rest. J.V. John Voss, Robert Voss's brother. I sat back, the machine humming, the screen flickering. Robert stayed behind to save the register, but maybe he wasn't trying to save the guests. Maybe he was trying to save him. I drove back to the mountain 2 days later. Daylight, clear sky, autumn sun sharp and gold. I took the same turnoff. The gravel track was overgrown now. Saplings across the road, branches low and grasping. I parked and walked. It took 20 minutes, hacking through ferns and fallen limbs, following the faintest depression in the undergrowth, what might have been a path. I reached the outcrop. Nothing, just rocks, trees, wind and the pines. I stood where the porch would have been, where the door had opened. I pulled a brass key from my pocket, the one I had taken from the nightstand, the one I hadn't realized I'd kept until I found it in my jeans this morning. It was warm, not from my hand, from inside. I held it up. Sunlight glinted off the teeth, and in that light I saw the engraving, faint but unmistakable, worn into the bow. Hemlock Rest, Room 3. I dropped it. It didn't hit the ground. It vanished, midair, 6 inches above the moss. No sound, no flash, just gone. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw the footprint in the soft earth beside a birch root. Fresh, barefoot, small, a child's, leading into the rock face, where there was no door, no opening, just stone. But the print was deep, as if whoever made it had been running or pulled. I didn't follow it. I walked back to the car, but as I reached the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. For just a second, before the trees closed in, I saw it. On the ridge, the lodge, not in ruins, not burning, just there, lit from within, smoke rising, and in the window of Room 3, a figure, watching me go. The next night, I dreamed of the candle. It burned on the nightstand, steady and bright. The door opened. This time, I didn't look at the phone. I turned. The figure stood at the foot of the bed. Closer now. The coat was damp, smelled of wood smoke and wet earth, and the face still blank. But the oval had changed. It wasn't smooth anymore. It was forming. A brow, the suggestion of a nose, a mouth slightly open, and the eyes, not empty, not yet, but waiting for me to recognize them. When I woke, my pillow was damp, not with sweat, with dew, cold, mountain dew, and on the floor beside the bed, 3 drops of water in a line. Tap, tap, tap. I haven't slept in a bed since. I camp in the car now. Motels are out of the question. Even chain hotels, the uniformity, the thin walls, the way the hallway lights hum at 3 a.m., it all feels like a prelude. But last week, driving through New Hampshire, I saw a sign. Not official, just a plank on a pine. Lodge 1.5 hours of Mayors, heat. Shower. The arrow pointed down a dirt road shaded by hemlocks. I kept driving, but in the mirror, as I passed, the sign wasn't there anymore, just a tree, and nailed to its trunk, a rusted hinge, still swinging. Gently, like something had just closed the door. With that, the story is over. Let's move to the next story. We found a road that circles back to a town that isn't there anymore. I never meant to end up anywhere like this. It started, like most of the really bad things in my life, with the decision made out of exhaustion and desperation. 2 things that dull the edges of judgment, make you think, this can't be that bad when in fact it can. It always can. The GPS had stopped working an hour ago, just froze mid-turn, the little blue dot blinking erratically before the screen went black and wouldn't reboot. No matter how many times I jabbed the power button, my phone had long since given up too. 1 bar, then none. I was somewhere in the folded hills of central Pennsylvania, where the roads wind like frayed laces through a maze of old coal towns and hollows that time forgot. I'd taken this route, back roads mostly, because Google Maps said it'd save me 45 minutes on the drive from Pittsburgh to Harrisburg. A shortcut, the kind of shortcut you only take when you're already running late, low on gas, and too tired to care about the consequences. The sun had set hours ago. The sky was a thick, inky smear, punctuated only by the occasional flicker of lightning far to the south. Heat, lightning maybe, or something else. I couldn't tell. My headlights cut through the mist that had settled over the valley like a shroud, curling around the trunks of skeletal oaks and pooling in the dips of the road. The asphalt here wasn't well maintained. Patches of gravel, potholes deep enough to rattle my fillings, shoulders that dropped off into black nothingness. I kept both hands on the wheel, knuckles white, jaw clenched. Then the sign appeared. It wasn't lit. There were no reflectors on it, just faded green metal, rust bleeding from its edges like old wounds. I almost missed it. The car's beams caught it at a slant, just enough to illuminate the words in peeling sun-bleached enamel. Welcome to Hazelwood, Incorporated, 1892, Pop, 117. Below it, a smaller sign, newer, but just as weathered. Road closed beyond this point. Detour, 12 miles. I slowed. Hazelwood? I didn't recognize the name. I'd lived in western PA for 6 years, driven every back route between Pittsburgh and State College at least once. Logging roads, fire access trails, forgotten county spurs, and I'd never seen Hazelwood on a map. Not on Google, not on my paper atlas. I reached for my phone again. Still dead. I'd forgotten to charge it before leaving, and the car's USB port had been glitching for weeks. I sat there, idling, staring at the sign. The detour would add time I didn't have. My sister's wedding was tomorrow afternoon, and I was already pushing it. If I turned back now, I'd lose at least an hour, maybe 2, finding an alternate route in the dark. And then I noticed something else. The road didn't look closed. No barricades, no orange cones, no road ends warnings. Just the sign, road closed beyond this. Point And then, the pavement continuing smooth and unbroken, vanishing into the mist ahead, I exhaled, took my foot off the brake. I crossed a sign. It was stupid, I know that now, but in the moment it felt rational, logical. Roads get mislabeled. Signs go up for repairs that never happen. Maybe the detour was outdated. Maybe a storm had washed out a bridge farther on and they planned to close it but hadn't gotten around to it. Small towns do that. I've seen it. So I drove. The road narrowed. The trees closed in tighter. My headlights picked up the glint of broken glass near the shoulder, old beer bottles maybe, or something worse. The mist thickened, not just hanging in the air, but clinging, like cobwebs against the windshield. I turned on the wipers. They squealed, smearing more than clearing. 10 minutes in, I passed the first house. It sat about 50 yards off the road, half hidden behind a thicket of dead sumac. 2 stories. Clapboard siding peeled back in long gray strips. The windows were gone, just jagged holes, black and depthless. A sagging porch leaned precariously on one rotted post. A rusted swing hung from a skeletal oak in the yard, swaying slightly, though there was no wind. I didn't stop, didn't slow, but I felt it, the weight of being watched. Not paranoia, not the usual nighttime jitters of driving alone in the middle of nowhere. This was different. It was like the air itself had turned dense, charged, as if the whole valley were holding its breath. I checked the rear view. The house was gone behind a curve. I reached for the radio. Static. I twisted the dial. Nothing but white noise rising and falling in slow rhythmic pulses, like breathing. Then ahead. Light. Not car headlights, not street lights. A dull amber glow, steady, low to the ground. I rounded a bend, and there it was. A gas station, or what used to be one. The sign above the canopy read, Hazelwood Shell. The red and yellow faded to a sickly ochre. The pumps were ancient, chrome dinosaurs, nozzles hanging slack like broken limbs. The glass in the front doors was shattered, but the interior wasn't dark. A single bulb burned behind the counter. I pulled in. Not because I needed gas, my tank was still half full, but because the sight of light, of any sign of human presence, was a relief so sharp it brought tears to my eyes. I killed the engine. Silence. Not the ordinary quiet of the countryside. No crickets, no owls, no distant hum of power lines, just nothing. A vacuum. My own heartbeat thudded in my ears, loud enough that I could feel it in my throat. I stepped out. The air was colder than it should have been, mid-June, but it felt like October. Damp, metallic, like the smell before a storm, but sharper, like old pennies, like blood left to dry in the sun. The door to the station creaked open before I reached for it, not blown by wind, not stuck and swinging. It opened inward, smoothly, as if someone had just stepped back from it. I froze. Hello? My voice cracked. No answer. I stepped inside. The bulb behind the counter flickered once, twice, then steadied. Dust hung in the air, motes catching the light like slow falling stars. The shelves were still stocked, mostly. Cans of soda, their labels yellowed and peeling. Boxes of crackers, bloated with moisture. A rack of comic books, covers warped, pages fused together. A rotary phone sat on the counter, off the hook, its cord trailing down into the darkness beneath. And behind the counter, a newspaper. The Hazelwood Gazette, dated June the 17th, 1974. I picked it up. The paper was brittle, crumbling at the edges. The headline read, Final Evacuation Order Issued. Residents to leave by sunset. Below it, a smaller subheading. Officials cite unstable subsurface conditions as reason for permanent closure. I flipped it open. The ink had bled in places, but I could still read fragments. No official cause given for the tremors. 3 families reported missing last week. Mrs. Eleanor Voss, 68, claims she heard the town speaking in the walls. Authorities deny rumors of sinkholes swallowing homes whole. All utilities to be shut off at midnight. My hands were shaking. 1974, 52 years ago. I looked around. The cash register was open. Inside, 2 dimes, a penny, and a photograph. A black and white print, slightly curled at the corners. A group of people standing in front of this very gas station. Men in work shirts, women in floral dresses, children barefoot in the dirt. They were smiling, but their eyes were wrong. Not closed, not squinting, just empty. Like the sockets had been scooped out and filled with wet clay. I dropped the photo. It fluttered to the floor and landed face down. I backed out of the station fast, fumbling for my keys. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. Get back in the car, turn around, go back the way I came. Now. I didn't look at the photo again. I didn't look at the phone. I didn't look at the dark hallway behind the counter, the one that led deeper into the building where the flickering light didn't reach. I drove hard, fast, tires spitting gravel as I swung the car back onto the road, engine whining, foot heavy on the gas. But the road didn't curve back the way I'd come. It straightened. And ahead, through the thinning mist, the amber glow returned. Not one light this time. Dozens. A cluster of them. Windows, street lamps, a flickering neon open sign over a diner. Hazelwood, not ruins, not a ghost town frozen in decay. Alive. I slowed. The town unfolded before me like a diorama lit from within. A main street. Chestnut Avenue, according to a chipped stone marker at the intersection. 2 lanes, cracked but paved, sidewalks of uneven concrete, weeds pushing through the seams. A row of storefronts. Miller's Hardware, the Corner Diner, Hazelwood Savings and Loan, Doc Harlan, dentist and optometrist. Every window glowed with warm yellow light. Curtains were drawn in some, lace, floral patterns, but in others I could see movement, shadows passing behind glass. A bell chimed. I flinched. It came from the fire station, a squat brick building with a tower, the bell hanging in the open belfry, swaying gently. No rope attached, no wind. I rolled to a stop at the center of town, near a small green with a bandstand and a rusted cannon. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my fingers ached. This wasn't possible. I checked my phone again. Still dead. I opened the glove compartment, dug out the paper atlas I kept for emergencies, flipped to Pennsylvania, scanned the counties. Cambria, Blair, Center, Clearfield, no Hazelwood, not on any map. I looked up. A man stood on the sidewalk across the street. He wore a brown work coat, suspenders, a flat cap, pulled low. His hands were in his pockets. He wasn't moving, just watching. I rolled down my window. "Excuse me?" My voice was thin, reedy. He didn't respond. "Sir, is this Hazelwood?" Still nothing. Then he raised one hand, not a wave, a point. Down the street, past the diner, past the bank, toward the edge of town, where the road continued, straight, unbroken, into the woods again. My eyes followed his finger, and that's when I saw it. The sign, identical to the one at the town's entrance. "Welcome to Hazelwood Incorporated, 1892. Pop 1 2-ounce mine." I turned my head. Looked behind me. There, On the opposite side of the green was another sign. Same words, same rust, same peeling paint. I was inside the loop. I hadn't driven into Hazelwood, I'd driven around it. And now I was in it. I slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching, heart hammering like a trapped thing against my ribs. I backed up 50 feet, swung the wheel hard, and aimed for the road I'd come in on, the one past the gas station. But when I reached the edge of town, there was no gas station, just the sign, and the road curving ahead, mist-shrouded, leading back toward the amber glow. I tried the other way, north, south, east. Every road out of Hazelwood led me back to Chestnut Avenue. Every turn brought me past the bandstand, the cannon, the fire station with its silent bell. I passed the same storefronts, saw the same figures in windows, not waving, not shouting, just there, still as statues, watching me drive by for the third time, the fourth, the fifth. By the seventh loop, I stopped counting. My gas gauge dropped from half to a quarter, then to an eighth. The engine began to sputter on the inclines, long, shallow rises that shouldn't have taxed it, but did. I pulled into the gravel lot beside the diner. The corner diner. The neon sign buzzed, flickering, open in uneven stutters. Windows were steamed. Inside, booths lined the walls, red vinyl cracked and patched with duct tape. A counter with 10 stools, a coffee pot percolating on a hot plate. The door opened as I approached, not by itself this time, by a woman. She stood in the doorway, wiping her hands on a flour-smeared apron, mid-50s maybe, gray hair pinned up in a loose bun, round glasses, a kind face, except for the eyes. The same emptiness I'd seen in a photograph. Not hostile, not friendly, just absent. Like her soul had been scooped out and replaced with something quiet, something waiting. "You're late," she said. Her voice was soft, familiar, like a lullaby half remembered from childhood. I didn't mean to come here," I said. "My GPS died. You're late," she repeated, stepping aside. "Dinner's almost ready." I didn't move. She tilted her head. "You are coming in, aren't you? We've been waiting." "Waiting for what?" My voice broke. She didn't answer, just smiled, a small, tight thing that didn't reach her eyes, and gestured inside. I looked back at my car. Keys still in the ignition. Door open. I could run, get in, try one more time. But the gas gauge now read E, and in the distance, the bell chimed again. Once, slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Coffee, bacon, cinnamon rolls, all of it rich, warm, real. The kind of smell that makes your stomach clench with longing, but beneath it, something else. Faint at first, then stronger, the coppery tang of blood, the sour milk reek of decay. Not rotten meat, something older, deeper, like the earth after a grave is opened. The diner was full, every booth, every stool, men, women, children, all dressed in 1970s clothes, bell-bottoms, polyester shirts, headbands, thick-framed glasses. They ate in silence. Forks scraped plates. Coffee cups lifted and lowered. But no one spoke. No one laughed. No clink of cutlery beyond the bare minimum. And all of them, had the same eyes. Empty, glossy, like river stones smoothed by time and pressure. The woman led me to a booth in the back. A place was set. White plate, steel fork, glass of water, condensation beating on the sides, a single slice of pie. Cherry. The filling dark, almost black, the crust golden, flaky. "Eat," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I'm not hungry." "You are," she said gently. "You just don't know it yet." I looked around. A little girl in a yellow dress stared at me from the next booth. She held a doll with button eyes. Only one remained. The other socket was a dark hole. She raised her free hand and pointed at me, just like the man had. Then she opened her mouth. No sound came out, but her jaw kept opening, wider, wider, until her shin touched her collarbone, and from the darkness inside, a sound, not a voice, a chorus. Whispers, hundreds of them, layered, overlapping, speaking in no language I knew, and yet understanding every word. "You drove the loop, you saw the sign, you came back. You're ours now. You belong here. You always have." I shoved back from the table. The woman didn't move. "You can't leave," she said, not unkindly. "Not anymore." "Why not?" I choked out. She reached across the table, took my hand. Her skin was cold, dry, not like flesh, like paper left too long in a drawer. "Because Hazelwood doesn't let go," she said. "Not once it's had a taste." I yanked my hand away, ran out the door, past the fire station, past screen, to my car. The engine turned over once, twice, then died. I tried again. Nothing. The battery light glowed red. I got out, walked to the front of the car. The headlights were out. The hood was warm. I popped it. Steam curled up from the engine block, but the radiator was dry, bone dry, and etched into the metal of the air filter housing something that hadn't been there before. Words, scratched deep, jagged, as if done with a nail or a shard of glass. "Welcome home." I backed away, looked up. The town was different now. The lights were dimmer, the windows darker. The figures were no longer in the booths, the stores. They were outside, standing on the sidewalks, on the lawns, in the street, dozens of them, hundreds, all facing me, none moving, just watching, waiting. The woman from the diner stood at the edge of the green, her apron now stained dark red down the front. She raised her hand again, not pointing this time. Inviting. Behind her, the bell in the fire tower began to toll. Not one chime, a slow, steady rhythm. Boom, 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 like a giant's heart, like the pulse of the earth itself. And beneath it, I heard it, a low, grinding sound, not from the town, from under it. A deep, tectonic groan, the sound of something vast shifting in its sleep. The ground trembled, just slightly, enough to make the coffee cup on the diner's windowsill rattle, enough to crack the sidewalk at my feet. A hairline fracture no wider than a pencil, but inside the crack, not dirt, not rock. Teeth, hundreds of them, small, sharp, human size but wrong, too many cusps, too many roots, fused together in a writhing, interlocking mass. And they were moving, opening, closing, chewing. I stumbled back, tripped, fell onto the grass near the cannon. The bell tolled again. Boom. The crack widened. Boom. More teeth. A jawbone curved like a crescent moon rising from the earth. Boom. A hand, gray, bloated, fingers too long, gripped the edge of the fissure. Then another, then a face, not decayed, not skeletal. Preserved, like it had been kept in formaldehyde for 50 years, eyes open, mouth sewn shut with thick black thread, but the skin, it rippled, as if something beneath it was trying to get out. More hands emerged, dozens, pulling, climbing. The townspeople didn't scream, they didn't run. They stepped forward, one by one, and as each passed the fissure, they changed. Their clothes darkened, stiffened, turning to burial shrouds, their skin paled then grayed, their mouths unstitched themselves, and from the darkness within, the chorus rose, louder, clearer, not whispers now, a song, a hymn, old, older than the town, older than the coal seams beneath it, older than the mountains. It wasn't in English, but I understood it. It said, "You drove the loop, you passed the sign, you entered the circle, you are the offering, you are the key, you are the one who closes the door by becoming the lock." I scrambled to my feet, ran, not toward the road, toward the woods, away from the green, away from the bell, away from the thing rising from the earth. Branches tore at my arms, roots snagged my ankles. The forest here wasn't natural, it was dense, choked with vines that felt like sinew, trees with bark that resembled scar tissue. I didn't stop. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs gave out. I collapsed against the trunk of a massive oak, its roots coiled above the ground like serpents, panting, crying, praying, and that's when I saw it, taped to the tree, a piece of paper, yellowed, brittle, a map, hand-drawn, ink faded, a single road looping endlessly. At the center, Hazelwood. Around the loop, in careful looping script, if you see the sign, do not pass it. If you pass it, do not stop. If you stop, do not enter. If you enter, do not eat. If you eat, do not sleep. If you sleep, you wake up inside the walls, and the town remembers your name. At the bottom, scrawled in shaky red. He tried to warn us. He failed. Now he's part of the foundation. E.V. 6/16/74, Eleanor Voss, the woman from the article, the one who said she heard the town speaking. I looked up. The woods were silent, too silent. Then movement between the trees, shapes not running, not chasing. Walking, slowly, patiently, carrying shovels, ropes, a coil of black thread, and leading them, the woman from the diner. Her apron was gone. She wore a white dress now, a wedding dress, torn, stained. The veil covered her face, but I could see her eyes through the lace, still empty, still waiting. I turned, ran again, blindly, stumbled into a clearing, and there, my car, parked neatly on the shoulder of the road, engine off, keys in the ignition. The headlights were on. I didn't question it. I ran to it, yanked the door open, slammed it shut, locked it, turned the key. The engine roared to life. I threw it in drive, floored it. The tires spun, caught, and I shot forward, back onto the road. The mist was gone. The sky clear, stars bright. I didn't look back. I drove for hours, no signs, no towns, just the road, straight and empty. At dawn, I saw it, a green mile marker. Harrisburg, 14 miles. I sobbed, real, alive. I made it. I pulled into a gas station just outside the city, filled the tank, bought coffee, a protein bar. Sat in the car, shaken, watching the sunrise. Safe. It was over. I texted my sister, running late, but on my way, love you. She replied instantly, where are you? Ceremony starts in 20 minutes. I frowned, checked the clock on the dash. 6:47 a.m., June 18th. My phone buzzed, a notification from an unknown number, no name, no profile, just a single image, a photograph, black and white. Me, sitting in the booth at the diner, eyes empty, mouth slightly open, a slice of cherry pie in front of me, and in the background, through the window, the bandstand, the cannon, the fire station, and the sign. Welcome to Hazelwood Pop. Pontuortinin. I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floorboard. I looked up, through the windshield. The gas station attendant, a young man in a blue vest, was walking toward my car. He smiled, raised his hand, not a wave, a point, down the road, toward Harrisburg. I followed his finger, and there, just beyond the pumps, half hidden by the rising sun, a faded green sign, rust bleeding from its edges. Welcome to Hazelwood. My breath stopped. The engine idled. The radio, silent until now, crackled to life, static. Then a voice, soft, familiar, the woman from the diner. "You're late," she whispered through the speakers. "But don't worry, we saved you a seat." I looked in the rear view. Behind me, the road stretched straight and empty. Ahead of me, Harrisburg. But between the car and the city line, one last curve. And waiting at the apex of that curve, a flickering neon sign. Open, the corner diner, steam on the windows, a place, set, a slice of pie. Cooling, waiting, just for me. I put the car in drive, and I kept going, because what else is there to do? When the loop closes, you don't escape. You just learn to drive it smoother. You learn to smile when they point. You learn to eat the pie. You learn to like the taste of copper and cinnamon. You learn to love the sound of the bell. Boom! You learn to sew your own mouth shut. Boom! You learn to wait. Boom! For the next one. The one who sees the sign. The one who thinks, this can't be that bad. The one who crosses it, just like you did. And when they come staggering into town, wild-eyed and gasping, you'll be there, at the diner, in the booth, eyes empty, smiling, holding a fork and a napkin, ready to welcome them home. Because Hazelwood doesn't let go. It absorbs. It digests. It remembers. And the road? The road wasn't leading to the town. It was the town's intestine. And we're all just food, chewed slowly, over decades, over centuries, savored, until the hunger stirs again, and the bell tolls. Boom, once for the lost. Boom, once for the found. Boom, once for the ones who are still driving, still thinking they'll make it out, still believing the loop has an end. It doesn't. It never did. It's a circle, a mouth, and tonight, maybe, you'll see the sign, faded, rusted, innocent, and you'll think, just a little farther, just this once, and you'll cross it, and the road will welcome you with open arms and stitched shut lips, and a slice of cherry pie, dark, sweet, and just a little bit warm, like blood, like home. And with that, this story comes to an end. Let's move on to the next one. Every map says this town doesn't exist. My GPS disagrees. The detour was supposed to save me 20 minutes. A ribbon of unmarked county road slicing through the dense pine-choked hills of northern Maine, a shortcut whispered about in trucker forums. My GPS, a stubborn old Garmin mounted on the dash, had been arguing with the paper map for miles. Recalculating, it droned, its synthetic voice grating against the tense silence of the car. The road outside was the narrow, potholed track, barely wider than my sedan, hemmed in by walls of dark, dripping evergreens that blocked out the late afternoon sun. Rain had turned the dirt verges to slick mud, and the air hung thick with the smell of wet pine needles and something else, damp earth and a faint, acrid tang like old smoke. I was already lost, the kind of lost where the trees all look the same and the sky offers no compass. The GPS suddenly chimed, a bright, cheerful sound that felt jarringly out of place. In 500 feet, turn right onto Haven Street, it announced. Destination, rest stop. I frowned. Haven Street? There was no Haven Street on any map I'd seen. The area was supposed to be pure, unbroken wilderness, part of the 100-Mile Wilderness, a notorious stretch of the Appalachian Trail. No towns, no roads, just forest and rock. I slowed, peering through the rain-streaked windshield. The road ahead forked. The left branch looked like it continued the same muddy track, vanishing into the gloom. The right branch was different. It was paved, not perfectly. The asphalt was cracked and buckled, weeds forcing their way through, but it was unmistakably a road. And beyond the trees, just visible through the downpour, were lights. Not the harsh glare of sodium vapor streetlights, but a soft, warm, yellowish glow that seemed to beckon through the gray curtain of rain. My stomach growled, a reminder that I hadn't eaten since dawn. The GPS chimed again, more insistently. Turn right, onto Haven Street. Logic screamed, no. Maps showed nothing here. But the lights promised shelter, maybe a diner, a place to wait out the storm and get my bearings. The GPS had never steered me wrong before. With a sigh that fogged the windshield, I turned the wheel. The sedan bumped over the rutted edge onto the paved road. The change was immediate. The oppressive silence of the deep woods lifted, replaced by the soft hiss of tires on wet asphalt. The road curved gently, lined with old gnarled oaks, dripping with Spanish moss that hadn't been there a moment ago. And then Haven appeared. It wasn't large, a single main street, maybe 10 blocks long, lined with squat, weathered buildings, wooden storefronts with faded awnings, a brick post office, a white clapboard church with a steeple piercing the low clouds. The architecture was a strange blend of late 19th century New England and something older, more provincial. Gas lamps, not electric, cast their warm, flickering glow on the wet sidewalks. No cars moved on the street. No people walked. The only sound was the rain drumming on the roofs and the steady drip from the eaves. It felt preserved, like stepping into a diorama, a perfect, silent town under glass. I pulled into a parking spot outside a building with a faded sign, "The Wayfarer's Rest, Rooms and Meals." My headlights swept the empty street. Still no movement. No sound from inside the diner, just the rain. I killed the engine. The silence that followed was profound, deeper than the woods had been. It felt watchful, heavy. I grabbed my backpack, shouldered it, and stepped out. The air was colder than I expected, carrying that same acrid smoke smell, now mixed with the damp wool scent of old buildings. The wooden steps of the diner groaned under my weight, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness. I pushed open the door. A bell jingled, a cheerful, tinny sound that felt wrong. Inside, the diner was empty. Formica tables, red vinyl booths, a long counter with chrome stools. Everything was immaculately clean, dust-free, but utterly devoid of life. A coffee pot sat on a hot plate behind the counter, steaming faintly. The clock on the wall, a simple, round face with black hands, was stopped at 11:07. My stomach growled again, louder. I walked to the counter, the soles of my boots squeaking on the linoleum. "Hello?" My voice echoed slightly, swallowed by the silence. No answer. On the counter, next to the coffee pot, lay a single sheet of paper. It was a menu, but the prices were listed in cents, not dollars. The specials were things like beef stew, 1942 recipe, and apple pie, made with orchard apples. The date at the bottom, October 17th, 1942. A cold finger traced my spine. I turned to leave, the urge to flee suddenly overwhelming. As I reached for the door, a voice spoke behind me. Soft, calm, elderly. "Leaving so soon, traveler?" I spun around. An old man stood behind the counter where there had been no one all second before. He was frail, stooped, dressed in a simple gray apron over a shirt that looked decades out of style. His face was a road map of wrinkles, but his eyes were sharp, unnervingly clear, and fixed on me with an intensity that felt like a physical touch. He held a white porcelain cup, steam curling from it. He placed it on the counter. "You look chilled. Coffee on the house for wayfarers?" Thanks," I stammered, more out of politeness than desire. The coffee smelled rich, normal. I took a sip. It was hot, strong, perfect. The warmth spread through me, momentarily easing the chill. "This place, Haven? It's not on any map." The old man, his name tag read Elias, smiled faintly. It didn't reach his eyes. "Maps change, son. Roads get buried. Towns. Sometimes they just slip through the cracks. We don't get many visitors. The road's been washed out for years." He gestured vaguely towards the door. "Or so they say." "Years?" I asked, my voice tight. "But I just drove in." "Did you?" Elias's smile tightened. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The road finds who it needs to find, traveler, like it found you. You're here for a reason. The town has a vacancy." He nodded towards the stairs at the back of the diner. "Room 3, always waiting." A vacancy, room 3. The coffee suddenly tasted like ash in my mouth. I should go. My GPS. "Your GPS?" Elias chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. "That little box is just a tool. The road, the town. They have their own maps. Older maps." He straightened up, his sharp eyes boring into mine. "Check in, traveler. The storm's getting worse. You won't make it back to the main road tonight. Room 3 is comfortable, warm. And your name, it's already on the register." My blood ran cold. "My name? How do you—" "Check the register," he said softly, pointing to a thick, leather-bound book lying open on the counter near the cash register. My name. It was there, clear as day, in neat, looping script next to room 3, dated that very day. Below it, in the same hand, was a single word: permanent. I slammed the coffee cup down, the porcelain shattering on the linoleum. "No, I'm leaving. Now." I turned and yanked the door open, stumbling back out into the rain. The street was still empty. My car was where I left it. I sprinted for it, fumbling with the keys, my heart hammering against my ribs. I threw myself inside, locked the doors, and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine turned over and died, coughed, turned over again, nothing, dead. The battery light glowed accusingly on the dash. I tried again, and again. Silence. The rain drummed on the roof. I looked up, panicked. Elias stood on the diner's porch, watching me. He wasn't smiling now. He just stood there, a silent, patient figure in the flickering gaslight. And then, movement. Figures appeared in the doorways of the other buildings. Silhouettes in the windows of the post office, the general store, the church. Tall, still shapes, watching, waiting. Their faces were indistinct in the gloom, but I felt their gaze like a physical pressure. The town wasn't empty. It was full, and it was watching me. The GPS on the dash suddenly lit up, its screen glowing an eerie green in the dark car. It chimed, cheerful and oblivious. Recalculating route, destination, rest stop, turn left onto Haven Street. But Haven Street was the only street. It was a loop. There was no left, no right, just the town, Trapped. I grabbed my phone. No signal, of course. I looked back at the diner. Elias was gone. But the figures in the windows remained, and one of them, a tall figure in a long dark coat standing in the church doorway, raised a hand, not in greeting, in beckoning. "Come in, stay." The cold from the town seeped through the car's metal frame, deeper than the rain. The acrid smoke smell was stronger now, mixed with the damp wool and something else, something vaguely sweet, like old flowers left to rot. The silence wasn't just absence of sound anymore. It was a presence, a waiting. The town of Haven wasn't on any map because it didn't belong to the world I knew. It existed in the cracks, in the forgotten spaces between the lines, and it had claimed me. My name was in the register. Room 3 was waiting. The road hadn't been washed out. It had been waiting for me. I slumped back in the driver's seat, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a terrifying, seductive numbness. The figures didn't move. They just watched. Elias's words echoed. "The town has a vacancy." It wasn't an offer. It was a statement of fact. My GPS chimed again, a final mocking beep. Destination reached. I opened the car door. The rain had stopped. The air was utterly still. The gas lamps cast long, distorted shadows on the wet street. The figures were gone from the windows, but I knew they were still there, inside the buildings, inside the town, waiting for me to walk up those diner steps, to sign the register properly, to take my place in room 3. The map outside didn't matter. The GPS had brought me home to a town that existed only for those it chose, and my name was already written. I stepped out of the car. The door clicked shut behind me, a soft, final sound. I didn't look back. I walked towards the warm yellow light spilling from the diner window, towards Haven, towards room 3, towards the permanent vacancy with my name on it. The town breathed around me, silent and satisfied. I was home, and the maps, all of them, were finally right. Haven didn't exist for anyone else, but for me, it always would, forever. That brings this story to a close. Let's carry on to the next one. The mall that shut down. Years ago, still announces sales at midnight. We didn't go to Holloway Galleria for ghosts. We went for footage. Cass needed B-roll for her documentary, Retail Ruin, The Death of the American Mall. And Holloway was the crown jewel of decay, a 1.2 million square foot monument to 1980s success. Shuttered overnight in 2007 when its anchor tenant, a regional department store chain, imploded in a fraud scandal. No fire, no collapse, just a silent corporate vanishing act. Doors locked, lights extinguished, security guards dismissed via email, and left to rot. Marble floors cracked by frost heaves, skylights shattered by hail, kiosks swallowed by creeping ivy that snaked in through broken vents. It was supposed to be empty, just dust, pigeons, and the slow, dignified collapse of drywall. But the rumors wouldn't die, not the usual ones. No vanishing teenagers, no spectral janitors, just this. Every night at midnight, the PA system crackles to life. A Taz, woman's voice, calm, polished, retail perfect, announces a sale, always the same sale, always the same department, always ending with the same phrase. Remember, loyalty is rewarded. Cass scoffed. Probably a backup battery feeding a loop tape, or a prankster with a Bluetooth speaker. Theo, ever the skeptic with the spectrum analyzer, nodded. If it's real, I'll catch the carrier wave. If not, we get great decay shots. And me? I just needed to see it. Because 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, my sister Mara vanished from Holloway Galleria. Not abducted, not lost. Announced. Her name, Mara Reed. Flashed on the directory board beside Security Office, Lost Child. For 3 days after she disappeared. Then it vanished, like she'd never existed. The police report listed her as voluntary departure. No evidence, no witnesses, just a pink raincoat left draped over a bench outside Spencer's Gifts, pockets empty, except for a single dried juniper berry. I never believed she left. I believed the mall took her. So on the 10th anniversary, November 13th, 2025, we went back. Midnight. The chain-link fence surrounding Holloway was rusted through in places, sagging like a tired spine. We slipped through a gap near the old food court entrance, boots crunching on broken glass and frozen mulch. The air inside wasn't stale, it was preserved. The smell hit me first, lemon-scented floor wax, cinnamon pretzels, and beneath it, the dry, papery scent of old paperbacks from the long-gone Walden books. Not decay, not mildew, memory. As if the building had sealed itself in amber the moment the last shopper left. Our headlamps cut narrow cones through the dark. The atrium loomed ahead. 3 stories of dead escalators. A skeletal fountain crusted with white mineral deposits. A giant, moth-eaten banner still strung across the balcony. Holloway Galleria, where friendship begins. We moved deeper. Stores gaped like eye sockets. Radio shack. Shelves bare, cords trailing from empty display cases like severed veins. The Gap. Mannequins still posed, one arm raised, fingers curled as if holding an invisible shirt. Spencer's Gifts. Black light posters peeled at the corners, a single rubber skull grinning from the counter. Cass filmed. Theo scanned frequencies. I walked ahead. Drawn. To the center. To the old customer service kiosk. A curved island of faux wood laminate. Nameplate still legible. How may I help you? Behind it, mounted on the wall, the PA console, brushed steel, buttons labeled All Call, Security, Directory, Sales, Dusty, Dead. Theo checked his analyzer. 0 EMF, no power on the grid. This place is cold. Cass checked a watch. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes. If it's a hoax, it'll start soon. We waited. Silence. Not peaceful. Thick. Like cotton packed in the ears. 11:59. And the draft moved. Through the atrium, not from outside, from the ventilation shafts. Smelling of ozone and burnt sugar. Theo's analyzer flickered. A spike. Low frequency. 0.7 hertz infrasound. The range that vibrates the human eyeball. Makes you see shadows. Feel watched. Feel hungry. Midnight. The PA system crackled, not static. A clearing of the throat. Wet. Professional. Familiar. Then, the voice. Female. Mid-50s. Warm. Smiling. The voice of a woman who'd spent 30 years saying, "Have a nice day." With absolute sincerity. Good evening, shoppers. Holloway Galleria is pleased to announce a special Midnight Madness sale tonight only. In the children's department, room 214, everything is 50% off. Dresses, shoes, raincoats, hairbrushes, juniper berry necklaces, all must go. Remember, loyalty is rewarded. The voice cut off. Silence rushed back, denser now, heavier. Cass lowered her camera. Okay, that was not a tape. Theo stared at his screen. The carrier wave, it's not radio, it's acoustic, resonating through the building structure, like the whole mall is humming. I didn't move, because beneath the voice I'd heard it, a whisper, layered beneath the polished tone, Mara's voice, faint, terrified. "Eli, don't come. The sale isn't real. The discount is a lie. They're not selling things. They're selling names." I walked toward the escalators. The up escalator to the second floor, frozen mid-motion, rusted steps like broken teeth. I stepped on. The others followed. The children's department. Room 214, not a store, a suite. 2 connected spaces, once a toy store and a children's boutique, merged behind a false wall, no signage, just a door. Plain white, with a single word stenciled in black. Loyalty. The handle turned. Inside, light. Not battery-powered, not generator-fed. Ambient. A soft, greenish glow rising from the floor. The room was set up like a boutique. Racks of tiny dresses, pink, yellow, blue, on miniature mannequins, rows of shoes neatly paired. A display table of hairbrushes, bristles tangled with strands of hair, blonde, red, black, brown. And in the center, a rack of raincoats, pink, all identical, all labeled. Mara Reed, size 6, final sale. I reached for one. The fabric wasn't nylon. Skin, preserved, stretched, stitched at the seams with black thread. The hood lined with soft russet fur, not rabbit. Hair. Mara's hair. I knew the shade, the texture, the way it caught the light. Cass gasped, pointed at the far wall, a full-length mirror, fogged, words written in condensation. "Your discount is waiting, Elias. 50% off your name." Pay in memories. "Collect your purchase in the back room." Theo backed toward the door. "Eli, look." He pointed at the floor. The green light wasn't ambient. It pulsed from beneath the tile. Between the cracks, thin lines of phosphorescent green forming a pattern, not random, a floor plan. Holloway Galleria, but altered. The food court, gone. The atrium collapsed. And in its place, a new structure. Deep underground, labeled in glowing script, the Loyalty Center. Department of Rewards. Room B7, below it, words. All sales final, no returns, no refunds. Loyalty is rewarded. The PA crackled again, not the announcer, a child's voice, clear, singing. Back and forth, hand in hand, across the dark, across the land. Mara's song, from the basement, the thump, 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 began, not from the walls, from the floor, like a heart or a fist, knocking. The raincoats on the rack twitched, not wind, breathing. Cass grabbed my arm. "Eli, we need to go. Now." I didn't move, because the mirror fogged again. New words. "You swore an oath, pinky swear. If one of us falls, the other jumps too. You jumped, Elias, but you didn't land. You were caught." I remembered, not the fall, the promise. Mara and I, 7 and 9, playing near the fountain. She leaned too far, slipped, fell into the shallow water. I jumped in after her, laughing, splashing, but the water wasn't shallow. It deepened. The fountain wasn't stone, it was a mouth. And as we sank, green light flaring around us, a voice whispered, "Loyalty is rewarded." We didn't drown. We were hired. Mara, junior loyalty associate. Me, security trainee. Our first task, bring back the others, the ones who broke their oaths, the ones who forgot. The PA crackled one last time, the announcer's voice, softer now, sad. "Final call for Elias Reed. Your discount expires in 5 minutes. Proceed to the Loyalty Center, room B7. Your sister is waiting. She's been very patient." A pause. Then Mara's whisper, raw with tears. "Please, Eli, say you're loyal. Say it, or they'll mark you. Absent." The raincoats began to unzip. not mechanically, biologically. Zippers sliding down spines, hoods peeling back, revealing faces, not mannequins. Children, dozens of them, eyes closed, mouths sewn shut with black thread, hands folded over their chests, all wearing pink raincoats, all with russet hair, all Mara. The mirror fogged. Final words. Absent students, go to the office. Absent customers, go to the basement. Absent brothers, get replaced. The door behind us slammed shut. The bolt slid home. The green light flared, and from the floor the thump, thump, thump became a roar. The tile cracked, not breaking, opening. A staircase descended, not concrete, bone. Vertebrae fused into steps, glowing green. At the bottom, light, and the smell, apples, rotting, and river mud. Lena's voice, no, Mara's voice, rose from the dark, clear, calm. Come on, Elias, it's time for your reward. I looked at Cass, at Theo. Their eyes weren't theirs anymore. Black, like river stones. They walked to the staircase, descended without hesitation. I followed, not because I wanted to, because the oath pulled, because the mall remembered, because loyalty, once sworn, is forever. The stairs ended in a circular chamber, the loyalty center, walls lined with lockers, each labeled with a name. Cassandra Voss, reward, eternal customer. Theodore Kim, reward, perpetual technician. Elena Mara Reed, reward, junior loyalty associate. And one, empty. Elias Reed, reward, pending. In the center, a desk, laminate, nameplate. How may I help you? Behind it, a woman, mid-50s, warm smile, eyes full of green gold light. She wore a pink raincoat, held a hairbrush, bristles tangled with russet hair. Welcome back, Elias, she said, Mara's voice, but older, smoother, layered with the announcer's polish. You're just in time for the final sale. She slid a form across the desk, not paper, skin, stretched, stitched at the edges. At the top, loyalty oath, final acceptance. Below, blank lines. Name. Discount claimed. Payment. Signature. A pen lay beside it. Bone, femur, tip sharpened to a point, dipped in black ink, not ink. Dried blood. Mara, the woman, smiled. Just sign, Elias. Say you're loyal. Say you remember the promise. Say you'll stay. And your reward is her. She gestured to the left. A curtain parted. A swing. Bone. Chains thick as wrists. 2 seats. One small, one tall. Mara sat in the small one. 7 years old. Freckles. Russet hair. Alive. Smiling. Come on. Daddy, she whispered. The swing needs 3. I picked up the pen. The bone was warm, alive. I looked at the form, the blank lines, and I understood. The discount wasn't 50% off. It was 50% of your name. Pay in memories, collect your sister. But the price was to stay, to become part of the staff, to man the PA, to greet the next lost child, to whisper, loyalty is rewarded, into the static. The pen touched the skin form. The ink spread, not black, green, glowing, and as I wrote, Elias Reed. The letters didn't sit on the surface. They sank in like roots, like chains, like a promise finally kept. Mara on the swing smiled. The chains began to hum. The green light filled the chamber, and from the PA above, my voice now calm, polished, retail perfect, announced, Good evening, shoppers. Holloway Galleria is pleased to announce a special Midnight Madness sale. Tonight only. In the security office, room B7, Everything is 50% off. Brothers, sisters, memories, oaths, all must go. Remember, loyalty is rewarded. The mall doesn't close. It hires. It gathers the lost, the broken-hearted, the ones who swore on pinky promises, on raincoats, on swings that they'd never let go. And when they return, the sale is always waiting. The discount is always ready. And the reward? The reward is her, smiling on the swing, waiting for you to finally sign, because the most terrifying thing about Holloway Galleria isn't the midnight announcements. It's the moment you realize you're the next voice on the PA. And the sale never ends. It just cycles. For the next customer, the next brother, the next oath, waiting to be claimed in the green-lit dark, where loyalty is always rewarded and all sales are final. And this story ends here. The next one begins now. We broke into an old bunker. The radios were already on. The bunker wasn't on any official map. Not the military archives Leo hacked into, not the county land records, not even the paranoid survivalist forums that charted every concrete drainage pipe in 3 states. We found it through whispers, literally. Driving back from a failed shoot at an abandoned steel mill outside Pittsburgh, the car radio, tuned to static between stations, crackled to life with a voice. Not music, not a station ID, just a voice, dry and rasping like stones grinding together, speaking numbers. 0, 7, 9, 3, Alpha, Bravo. It lasted 30 seconds, then dissolved back into white noise. Leo, ever the conspiracy theorist nursing a bruised ego and a dwindling bank account, slammed his hand on the steering wheel. Cold War number station. Dude, this is gold. They're still broadcasting. There's got to be a relay bunker nearby. His eyes held that reckless spark I'd seen before Willow Creek, before the Holloway Menagerie. I should have said no. The static voice had felt less like a broadcast and more like a lure. But the rent was due, my own savings were dust, and the promise of exclusive footage of an active Cold War relic was too tempting. We traced the signal's rough origin using a cheap SDR dongle Leo ordered off the dark web. It led us deep into the Allegheny National Forest, to a nondescript hillside choked with ferns and fallen timber. The entrance was hidden, not by camouflage netting or earth berms, but by sheer, deliberate obscurity. A rusted corrugated metal hatch, barely visible beneath a tangle of thorny blackberry vines, set flush into the hillside. No markings, no warning signs, just a heavy, circular wheel lock, crusted with rust, but not seized. Leo gripped it, heaved with a grunt. It turned with a protesting shriek of metal, releasing a breath of air that smelled of damp concrete, ozone, and something else. Stale dust laced with the sharp tang of old electronics, and a faint, cloying sweetness like decaying insulation. "Smells like Grandpa's basement after the power came back on," Leo muttered, forcing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. He pulled the hatch open. A ladder, slick with condensation, descended into absolute blackness. A wave of cold, dry air washed over us, carrying that strange static hum I'd only ever felt in places like the lodge and the tunnel, the signature of deep, wrong silence. "Radios are probably long dead," Leo said, his voice tight, pulling out his flashlight. "But the footage of the interior alone, it's worth it." He started down. The ladder was cold metal, groaning under our weight. The darkness below was profound, swallowing Leo's flashlight beam just a few feet down. The hum intensified as we descended, a deep, resonant thrumming in the concrete walls, vibrating up through the rungs into my bones. We reached the bottom, a narrow concrete corridor stretching left and right. The air was colder here, drier, smelling intensely of ozone dust and that sweet decay odor. And then I heard it, faint at first, beneath the hum. A crackle, a hiss, voices. Leo had heard it too. He swung his light down the corridor to the left. The beam illuminated a metal door, slightly ajar, stenciled on it in faded white paint. Comms room. And from within, spilling into the corridor, came the sound. Not static, not numbers, voices, dozens of them, overlapping, fragmented, speaking in a dozen different languages, English, Russian, Mandarin, German, some I didn't recognize, all crackling with that same dry, rasping quality as the car radio. Fallout perimeter breached. Do you copy? Over. The wolves are at the gate. Containment failed. It's not human. They're in the walls. Light the candles. Check the ledger. The guest list ends with our names. The tunnel is open. Haven Street is waiting. The cages are full. The voices weren't coming from one source. They seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, the pipes, the very air, a chaotic, desperate chorus echoing through the comms room. Leo's earlier bravado vanished. "What the hell is that?" he whispered, his face pale in the flashlight beam. He stepped towards the door, raising his camera. The voices seemed to react. They grew louder, more focused, swirling around us like a physical force. "Intruders!" one voice hissed, clear and sharp. "Fresh meat?" Another chuckled, dry as bones. "The keepers return," a third questioned, dripping with a terrible ancient hunger. The subsonic hum surged, vibrating the floor, making my teeth ache. The air crackled with static, raising the hairs on my arms. "Leo, don't!" I grabbed his arm, but he shrugged me off, mesmerized by the impossible audio feed. He pushed the comms room door fully open. The room was small, dominated by banks of dead, gray metal consoles covered in dials, switches, and empty sockets where vacuum tubes once glowed. Dust lay thick on every surface, but in the center of the room, on a simple wooden stool, sat a single, old-fashioned tube radio. It was the source. Its speaker grill glowed with a faint, internal amber light, and from it poured a chaotic chorus of voices, louder now, more insistent. "Stay. Listen. Join the broadcast?" Leo raised his camera, his hand trembling. "This is impossible. The power's been off for decades." He took a step closer. The voices snapped into sudden, terrifying coherence, not fragmented whispers. A single, unified command, spoken in that same dry, rasping voice from the car, but multiplied, echoing from every speaker, every wall, every pipe in the bunker. "Identify yourselves." Leo froze. I felt the hum intensify, becoming a physical pressure against my chest. The air grew colder, the sweet decay smell sharper, now laced with the metallic tang of ozone and old blood. The radio's amber glow pulsed. "Speak your names, for the record." Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. "We don't belong here," I yelled, my voice cracking. "We're leaving." I turned to flee back up the ladder, but the heavy metal hatch at the top of the ladder slammed shut with a deafening clang that echoed through the corridors. Dust rained from the ceiling. The voices on the radio didn't react. They just waited. The hum deepened, becoming a predatory purr. Leo was still staring at the radio, transfixed. It's asking for our names, he breathed, like it's logging us. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a dawning, terrible understanding, like the ledger at Willow Creek. The voices seemed to sigh in unison, a sound of dry satisfaction. Correct. All visitors are recorded. All names are held. Leo, the hatch is locked, I hissed, rattling the ladder rungs futilely. The metal was solid, immovable, trapped. The comms room door, left open, seemed to yawn wider. The voices lowered to a conspiratorial whisper, weaving through the static. No escape. The bunker breathes. It hungers for voices. Your names will sing with ours. Leo slowly lowered his camera. He walked towards the radio, not with fear now, but with a strange, resigned calm. Okay, he said, his voice flat. Leo Vance. He spoke his name clearly, directly into the speaker grill. The amber light pulsed brighter. A new voice, dry and final, cut through the chorus. Leo Vance. Recorded. Designation. Broadcaster 7A. He turned to me, a small, serene smile touching his lips. It's okay, Ben, he said. The signal. It needs voices. New voices. To keep the broadcast alive, to keep the watch. He gestured to the radio. Your turn. The hum was inside my skull now, a deep, resonant thrumming that synced with my heartbeat, slowing it, calming the panic. The cold wasn't just in the air. It was seeping into my bones, but it felt familiar, like the warmth of the heartwood, the silence of the vigil candles, the red-eyed watch of the Holloway. This place wasn't abandoned. It was occupied by the broadcast, by the voices, by the thing that fed on names and turned them into static. The bunker wasn't a shelter from the end of the world. It was the end of the world, preserved and broadcasting its own eternal hungry signal, and it needed keepers, broadcasters, just like the lodge needed guests, the tunnel needed walkers, the church needed keepers of the light, the zoo needed watchers, and the doorless house needed a heart. My name was already known. It was in the static, in the hum, in the very concrete of the walls. Resistance was dust. The broadcast was eternal, and my voice, it would join the chorus forever. Ben Carter, I said, the words tasting like ash and ozone, my name spoken into the glowing amber speaker. The light flared, bathing the dusty comms room in a warm, sickly glow. The chaotic voices fell silent. For a single, breathless second, there was only the deep hum and the dry whisper of dust settling. Then a new voice emerged from the radio. Clear, strong, unmistakably mine, yet layered with that same ancient rasping dryness. Ben Carter, recorded, designation, broadcaster 7B. The hatch at the top of the ladder remained sealed. The comms room door swung slowly, silently shut. The voices didn't return as a chorus. They flowed from the radio as a single, unified stream, a never-ending broadcast of fragmented warnings, desperate pleas, and cold commands, now with two new voices woven seamlessly into its fabric, Leo's and mine. Check-in, permanent. The guest list is complete. The tunnel walks. Haven Street welcomes. The cages watch. The heartwood beats. Broadcast continues. Leo walked to the corner of the comms room and sat down on the cold concrete floor, leaning back against the dead consoles. He closed his eyes, a look of profound peace on his face. The amber light from the radio played across his features. I walked to the other side of the room and sat down. mirroring him. The hum was a lullaby. The static was a blanket. The sweet decay smell was the scent of permanence. The bunker wasn't a prison. It was a studio, a sanctuary, our sanctuary. Our names were recorded, our designations assigned. The broadcast would never stop. And we, the new broadcasters, 7A and 7B, would never leave. We would sit here in the cold, dry dark and lend our voices to the eternal signal, watching the static for any flicker of movement, listening for the next lost soul drawn by the whispering numbers in the static, ready to welcome them, to record their names, to add their voices to the endless, hungry broadcast from the heart of the sealed bunker, forever. The radios were always on, and now so were we. With that, the story is over. Let's move to the next story. There's a playground where swings move in pairs, though no one is there. I didn't go to Holloway Park to find a ghost. I went because my daughter asked for it. Lena, 7 years old, freckled nose, hair like spun copper, had seen it in a dream 3 nights in a row. Not a nightmare. A memory, she insisted, though she'd never been there. She described it with eerie precision. The red slide shaped like a fire truck, the green metal merry-go-round with the chipped lion's head at its center, the rubber mulch that smelled like burnt sugar after rain, and the swings. The big ones and the little ones, she'd whispered, curled against me in the dark, thumb tucked in her mouth the way she hadn't done since she was 4. They go together, like friends, like me and you. One goes back, the other goes back. One goes forward, the other goes forward. Always together, always the same time. She drew it for me the next morning, crayon on construction paper. 2 swings, one tall, one short, arcing in perfect unison, and at the bottom of the page, in her careful block letters, "They're waiting for their friends to come back." I looked up Holloway Park online. Nothing, no city listing, no photos on Google Maps, no Yelp reviews, just a blank rectangle in the satellite view. 10 acres of green, swallowed by the bend of Cedar Creek, bordered by state forest on 3 sides and a long abandoned rail line on the 4th. A footnote in a 1972 county planning document called it Holloway Recreational Area, closed structural concerns. No explanation, no follow-up. But when I drove out there on a Tuesday afternoon, Lena napping in the back seat, stuffed rabbit clutched in her arms, the gate was open, not chained, not padlocked, just a weathered wooden archway, paint flaking off the letters. Holloway Playground at 1958, no sign of closure, no caution tape, just a gravel path curving into the trees. I parked, carried. Lena in, still asleep, her head heavy on my shoulder. The air changed as we passed under the arch, cooler still. The birdsong stopped. The creek's murmur faded as if muffled by cotton, and the smell, not pine, not damp earth, rubber, old, sun-baked, like tires left too long in a garage. The path opened into the clearing. Lena's drawing was exact. The fire truck slide, rust bleeding from its seams like dried blood. The merry-go-round, lion's head chipped, one eye socket empty, the other holding a smooth river stone. The sandbox, half filled with gray water, a single yellow bucket floating on its surface. And the swings, 4 of them. 2 tall A-frames, painted appealing institutional blue. On one frame, a standard swing, black rubber seat, chains thick with rust. On the other, a toddler swing, molded plastic, yellowed with age, safety harness dangling. They faced each other, 6 feet apart, perfectly aligned, and they were moving. not swaying in the wind, not creaking from residual momentum, swinging in flawless mechanical unison, back, pause, forward, pause, back. The timing was impossible. No breeze, no uneven ground, no hidden mechanism I could see. The chains didn't squeak, the seats didn't wobble. Just a smooth, silent arc, like clockwork, like something pulling them from above. Lena stirred, her eyes opened. She didn't gasp, didn't point, just whispered, voice thick with sleep and something else, recognition. "They're doing it." I set her down. She walked toward the swings, barefoot on the rubber mulch. I followed. The mulch wasn't rubber, not anymore. Up close it was made of shoes, hundreds of them, tiny sneakers, Mary Janes, flip-flops, all sizes, from infant to early elementary, worn, faded, laces knotted together, soles fused into a single, spongy mass that gave slightly underfoot, releasing that same burnt sugar smell. Lena stopped 3 feet from the swings. She tilted her head, watching. The adult swing arced back, high, almost parallel to the ground. The child swing mirrored it, smaller arc but identical rhythm. They reached the apex together, paused. Then, forward, chains taut, seats level. For one perfect, breathless second, they hung there, motionless, suspended, and in that stillness, I saw it, not on the seats. In them, a distortion like heat haze over asphalt. 2 shapes, faint, translucent, one tall, one small, sitting, hands gripping the chains, heads turned toward each other, smiling. Then the swing fell forward, the shapes dissolved, the motion resumed. Back, pause, forward. Lena took another step. "Can I try the little one?" she asked. "No," I said, sharper than I meant to. She didn't argue, just looked up at me, eyes wide, calm. "They won't let me fall," she said. "They hold on tight." I grabbed her hand, pulled her back. My palm was slick with sweat. I looked around. The slide, the merry-go-round, the sandbox, all wrong. The slide's ladder rungs weren't metal. Bones, femurs fused at the joints, polished smooth by decades of small hands. The merry-go-round's central pole, where the lion's head mounted, was wrapped in leather straps, not for grip, for binding. And the sandbox? The water wasn't rain. It was tears, thick, salty, warm to the touch when I knelt and dipped a finger. At the edge of the water, half buried, the yellow bucket. Inside it, a child's hairbrush. Bristles tangled with strands of hair, blonde, red, black, brown. All the colors, all the textures, all Lena's. I stood, pulled my phone. No signal. Camera wouldn't focus on the swings, just blurred streaks of light. I opened the voice memo app, pressed record. The sound came through instantly, not the swish of chains. A voice, faint, layered, hundreds of them, children, singing. Back and forth, hand in hand, across the dark, across the land. The swing goes high, the swing goes low. Hold my hand and don't let go. Back and forth, side by side, nowhere left for us to hide. The swing goes fast, the swing goes slow. Stay with me and don't let go. I stopped the recording, played it back, clear, undeniable. Lena hummed along, softly, off-key, the same tune. "Their song," she murmured. "They sing it when they're happy." "Who, Lena?" I knelt, gripping her shoulders. "Who are they?" She looked at the swings. "They're the ones who stayed." A gust of wind, sudden, sharp, swept through the clearing, not from the trees, from the swings. It carried the smell of river mud and wet wool, and beneath it, the coppery tang of blood. The swings slowed, not stopping, waiting. The adult seat drifted to a halt. The child seat matched it, side by side, empty, inviting. Lena pulled free of my grip, walked to the child swing. She didn't sit, just placed her hand on the plastic seat. It warmed under her touch. A soft, pulsing glow spread from her palm, green gold like fireflies trapped in amber. The chains began to hum, low, vibrant, like plucked piano wires. Lena turned to me. Her eyes weren't hers anymore, not dilated, not glazed. Full of that same green gold light. She smiled. "It's okay, Daddy," she said, voice unchanged, but the tone older, sadder, wiser. "They just want a friend. They get lonely. The swing needs two, always two. One to go back, one to go back, one to go forward, one to go forward." She stepped onto the footrest, gripped the chains, looked at the empty adult swing. "Will you push me?" I didn't move. Behind her, the mulch shifted. Not wind. Hands, pale, small, rising from the shoe-fused ground, not grabbing. Offering. Palm up. Waiting. I looked at the merry-go-round. The lion's stone eye rolled toward me. Click! The empty socket filled with green gold light. The merry-go-round began to turn, slowly, silently, carrying no one but the straps on the poles, tightening as if bound to invisible riders. Lena swung gently, back, pause, forward, pause, alone. But the rhythm was off. Stuttering, unbalanced, the green gold light in her eyes flickered. A tear, thick, clear, smelling of burnt sugar, rolled down her cheek. "They're sad," she whispered. "The swing is broken when it's only one." Then my phone buzzed. A text from my wife, sent 37 minutes ago. I hadn't heard it. "Where are you?" "Lena's asleep in her room. She's been asleep for 2 hours." I stared at the screen, looked at Lena standing on the swing, watching me, smiling, her pajamas, the ones she wore to bed, blue with white stars, the same ones she'd drawn in her dream, the same ones in the photos on my phone. My breath stopped. The phone buzzed. Again, another text, from an unknown number, no name, just a photo, black and white, faded, a playground, Holloway Park, 1958, opening day, a crowd of children, dozens, playing on the slide, the merry-go-round, the swings. In the foreground, 2 swings, one tall, one small, occupied. A man in a dark suit, hat pulled low, one hand on the adult swing's chain. A little girl, blonde hair, blue dress, sitting in the child swing, both looking at the camera, both smiling. The man's face was blurred, the girl's clear. My daughter's face, Lena's face, same freckles, same crooked front tooth, same eyes full of green gold light. Beneath the photo, a caption typed in neat old-fashioned font. Elias and Mara. First ride. August 12th, 1958. Mara, my mother's name. Her sister. Dead before I was born. Drowned in Cedar Creek, 1959. She was playing near the old bridge, my grandmother used to say, voice dropping to a whisper. They found her shoes by the water, neatly placed, like she took them off before stepping in. I looked up. Lena, Mara, was still on the swing. But the adult swing was no longer empty. A figure sat there, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit, hat pulled low, one hand gripping the chain, the other reaching across the 6 feet of space, toward Lena, toward me. The voice from the phone, my own voice, but older, rougher, choked with tears, played through the speaker, though I hadn't pressed play. "I'm sorry, baby." I let go, just for a second, to wave at the photographer. You leaned back and the chain slipped, and you were gone. I jumped in after you. I swam until my lungs burst, but the current took you. And when I woke up on the bank, they said I'd been under for 10 minutes. They said it was a miracle, but I knew you were still here, waiting for me to come back, to hold on tight. The figure lifted its head, not my face, not Mara's father's face. Mine, older, worn eyes full of green gold light and sorrow, so much sorrow. Lena, Mara, reached out. Her small hand met his, their fingers twined. The swings began to move, back, pause, forward, pause. Perfect, unbreakable. The green gold light flared, the mulch beneath my feet softened, gave way. I sank to my knees, not into shoes, into hands, cold, welcoming, pulling. The song rose, not from the recorder, but from the air itself, the trees, the earth. Back and forth, hand in hand, across the dark, across the land. The swing goes high, the swing goes low. Hold my hand and don't let go. Lena looked at me, not with fear, with love. Come on, Daddy, she said. Mara said, it's time. The swing needs 3 now. The adult swing beside her slowed, stopped, empty, waiting. For me, I stood, walked forward, placed my hands on the cold, rusted chains, sat. The seat molded to me, not metal. Bone, warm, alive. Lena, Mara, reached for my left hand. The figure, me, reached for my right. Our fingers locked. The swing began to move back, pause, forward, pause. Not 2 anymore. 3. The rhythm was different now, deeper, stronger. The hum in the chains became a song. The green gold light filled the clearing. The merry-go-round spun faster. The slide gleamed wetly. The sandbox water stilled, and from the mulch, hundreds of small hands rose, clapping gently in time, because Holloway Playground doesn't take children, it keeps them. It holds the ones who fell, the ones who jumped, the ones who let go, and it waits for the ones who swore on swings, on stars, on pinky promises, I'll never leave you. The swing arcs higher, the wind smells of river water and childhood, and as we rise, together, hand in hand, past the rusted archway, past the treetops, into the green gold dark, I finally understand. The accident wasn't in 1959, it was tonight. I am Mara's father. I am the man in the photo. I am the one who let go. And Lena, my daughter, is Mara, returned, to finish the ride, to heal the break, to make the circle whole. So I hold on tight. I don't let go. I never will again. Because the most terrifying thing about Holloway Playground isn't the empty swings. It's the moment you realize you were always on one, and the moment you finally remember is the moment the chains begin to pull you back. Back, pause, forward, pause, back, forever.